Hello, everyone. This is Dr.SHIVA. By the way, I'm going live with this also. And the conversation we're going to be having today is America's Dr.SHIVA versus Zionist CockZuckers, Trump, Biden, and Booby. We're really going to have a conversation about these other folks that people think are fighting for them, where they're in fact on the establishment side. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we'll come back to that, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let me, we also are doing this on Twitter Space, but you'll see that this is going live also on other platforms. So if people want to share the video that should be live on Twitter, please let other people know. All right, so we're also sharing it on other platforms. So Twitter Space is interesting. We have about a number of people on here. And we had originally scheduled this, as I mentioned, and we had over 100 people scheduled. But when I started this space, Twitter said you couldn't start your space. So I had to restart it. That's okay. We know how to handle the censors by just going direct to people. But the conversation we want to have today is to really educate people why I call these people without any without holding back, Trump, Biden, and Booby fucking Kennedy, Zionist cocksuckers. And I want to start this by playing for all of you a video that you might have heard. And for those of you on Twitter, you're going to hear it via my speakers here. But you may remember I did, right after I did the Swarm video, I played for I was doing an open interview during the GOP debates. And it's just sort of flowed pretty smoothly out of my mouth. I'm not sure why, but it just came from the depth of truth, frankly. And I want to share that with you guys. And that was this video. Let me play this with you. Play this for you.
Every presidential candidate except me sucks Zionist cock. That may not sound presidential, but in fact, it's very presidential because I represent the American worker who does not want us to be cocksuckers of Zionism. Donald Trump sucks Zionist cock. Nikki Haley sucks Zionist cock. Vivek the Snake sucks Zionist cock. Chris Christie, Booby fucking Kennedy, Joe Biden, all of these people. The only people that don't suck Zionist cock are the American workers who are being screwed. I'm an American worker. I'm one of us. But Donald Trump is no different than any one of them. They all serve Israel. Bernie Sanders, for example, is an Israeli citizen. Anthony Blinken is an Israeli citizen. The head of the CDC is an Israeli citizen. All of these people are Israeli citizens. All of these people work together against the American working people. There's a lot of liberal Zionists who are out there saying, ceasefire, peace now. I've seen that for 40 years. It doesn't get us anywhere. All that ceasefire does is let Israel pull back, then go bomb the shit out of the Palestinians again. The only way to end this is we must end the occupation. Ending the occupation means beginning with ending the occupation of America by Zionism. Zionists have taken over every seat of power of the United States. If we're going to free Palestine, we must end the occupation of America by Zionism. If there's anyone who should get military aid, it should be the Palestinian people. I'm not talking about Hamas, by the way, all those morons who think Hamas represents the Palestinian people. Hamas was created by Israel. So when you see Hamas, replace it with Israel.
We need to build a bottoms-up movement. Go to shivaforpresident.com and volunteer.
Every president.
All right. So I want to set that context. So I said a lot of things there. And recently, I just tweeted something. In spite of all the censors and the shadow banning, a lot of people are sharing it, which is essentially about Trump being a house nigga, N-I-G-G-A, which is an appropriate word that everyone should use. That term, the terminology of nigga, has been attempted to be wiped out of the vocabulary because they do not want people to recognize whether you're black, white, yellow, brown. We're all niggas on the white liberal plantation. And our movement, Truth, Freedom, Health, is the only movement out there that is teaching people how to get off the plantation. And those people who have problems with this kind of language can stay on the plantation. We really don't want to waste our time with those kind of people. We really want to focus on educating people how to get off the plantation. There's only one movement on the planet that's doing that. That's our movement and our run for president. Now, when I brought up Trump, you have to recognize that the plan to put Trump in power, to make him president, goes all the way back to late 1999. And this may seem like, how am I making this claim? Well, let me just tell you a couple of data points that you yourself can intersect that I've been personally involved in. In 2020, when I was exposing everything having to do with the vaccines first, the backdoor portal to Twitter, everything having to do and giving people a solution. And that solution was educating people on the power of vitamin D3. Now, 4 years later, the clinical studies are validating everything I said, even though those studies were out earlier. And I was the first one to put it out there. And I know for a fact I saved hundreds of millions of people's lives. So we and I did always the right thing at the right time. Now, at that time, Marla Maples, who was Trump's former wife, contacted me and was very excited about all the videos I was doing about health. And she said, you know, Tiffany, Trump thinks you're amazing. She thinks you're epic. So anyway, she and I did a video, you'll find it together. And she told me in conversations that when she left Donald Trump, this is in the 90s, that he said, you know, I will be president, dun, 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 and he, you know, sort of did that. So how did he know he was going to be president? How did he know that with such emphatic nature? And I want everyone to recognize that the swarm, as I've talked about, if you go to shattertheswarm.com, I've done a lot of, you know, a real deep analysis of this, which has gone viral in spite of, again, of all the censorship. But that video really gave all of you an insight to the nature from a systems perspective of who really operates, runs the world, how they use the science of systems, which all of you better learn. You can go to truthfreedomhealth.com and really learn the science of systems. And if you don't learn that, you're basically saying, I want to remain on the plantation, because it took me a lot of years to put that together. And when you go through that program, don't just take it once, study it. Don't think you know it all. You have to really study this shit, okay? But the foundations is that the swarm knows the science of systems. They have created, they plan ahead. They create their fake heroes, and all of them come from within them. It's a very incestuous clan. So Trump was created to be president in the late 1990s. And why do I say that with such emphatic, you know, confidence? Well, all you need to go is, number one, look at the fact that Trump is not any type of brilliant businessman. In fact, he's a complete fake businessman. Wherever he's gone, he's created bankruptcies. Everything he touches has actually failed. Anything he has made successful has been through the banking of major financiers who've backed him up. So I'm gonna, if you guys want to watch on any of the social media, you know, to those of you on Twitter Space, I'll share a video before we begin this conversation, and it's a little PowerPoint I want you to share. Now, this PowerPoint, this came out about 7 years ago. It was in Forbes, right? So it's your mainstream media. It says, getting Donald Trump out of debt, the 25-year-old ties that bind Trump and Wilbur Ross. Well, who is Wilbur Ross? Well, Wilbur Ross, as many of you may know, was appointed as Commerce Secretary by Trump. Well, who is Wilbur Ross? This little, you know, bald-headed, small little guy, diminutive figure, but he gets put as Trump's Commerce Secretary. And no one even questioned where this came from. People do not understand a cabinet appointment is paying back favors. That is what a cabinet appointment is. And again, we need to let go of our naivete. A cabinet appointment is paying back for favors, okay? So Trump was paying back favors to who? Wilbur Ross. But who is Wilbur Ross? Well, people need to understand Wilbur Ross worked for the Rothschilds. And I don't mean just work for the Rothschilds as a broad statement. He worked for the debt financing group of Rothschild Inc., the company, okay? And it's quite extraordinary. The establishment will put this stuff out as a limited hangout, but they do not want you to go really study this. So, and so, you know, as you can see, Trump appoints him as his Commerce Secretary. And this was, he's paying back a favor. What was the favor? Well, if people go read the history of Trump, you'll find out his father is the one who made a ton of money being a slumlord. And he gave Donald all this property. Now, by all, you know, if you talk to any financial experts, they'll tell you, even if you were a dumb fuck and you didn't do anything, you know, suppose, you know, you have a property in Manhattan for $1 million from, you know, 50 years ago, and you didn't do anything, that property would probably be worth around 50 million, okay? Because of the nature of investment, you know, 8% growth, typically on average, it just increases. Well, Trump's father gave him a shitload of property. And what did Trump do? He went bankrupt. He used to, he's just winging it. Okay. The guy really didn't know what he was doing. And he's not, he's a fake businessman, okay? You see him as a businessman because he's sitting at a desk with a phone to his head, but he fucked up most of the things he did. Well, one of the fuck ups he did, as you can see what I'm sharing is, he went and bought like property in Atlantic City, and he took a loan of $655 million in junk bonds at 14% interest rate, 14% interest rate. So imagine you buying a home for 14% interest rate and taking a $650 million loan out. Now, he had a number of such investments, and this investment went completely kaput. So he was completely out of business. So if you went and looked at his balance sheet, he's dead. All right. So what happens? Well, in comes a guy called Wilbur Ross. Now, Wilbur Ross was a former head of Rothschild Inc., Rothschild Inc.'s bankruptcy advising team. Okay. Which means they're the ones who come in and say, hey, you're going out of business. We have a plan for you. We're going to help you. And by the way, he was Trump's, again, pick for Commerce Secretary. And he, if you look at Trump, is known for close to 25 years. All right. So what did he do? The deal with Rothschild saw something interesting in Trump. They said, wow, this guy could really be a front man for us. WWE, they see him, he knows how to party with people, hang out with the Epsteins, right? People think he's cool. Hey, we could use this clown for our sake. So instead of completely fucking him over on this deal, which they could have because of the money that he owed, and this is quite extraordinary if you think about business deals, instead of screwing Trump over fully, what they did was they decided to use him. So they let him still have a 50% stake of this totally bankrupt situation where he's got 14% interest rate and nearly $700 million that he owes. And they gave him better debt terms. And the story goes, a decision was made by the Rothschilds that he would become their front man, and eventually that they promised him that he could become president. That was the trajectory he was put on. So in return for that trajectory to be their puppet, they only take 50% stake in his company, and they let him keep the other 50, which is quite extraordinary when they could have completely diluted his equity and taken 99% and given him 1%. That's what typically would have happened. But in return for him being their house nigga, the masses house nigga, okay, they allowed him to still own 50%. That's what happened, guys. And so what happens? You see him do book deals. You see him then do The Apprentice. You see he was all being teed up. This was not by accident. He is owned by the Rothschilds. And interesting enough, when Wilbur Ross sold his W.L. Ross hedge fund, okay, the next thing he did was he sold it to Invesco. And Invesco is the one that invested in 5 Brooklyn properties owned in deals none other than Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, you're going to see, shows up everywhere. Kushner is as Zionist as you can get. And I know this because I lived in my last 3 years. My parents moved into a town called Livingston where the Kushners lived. And Jared Kushner's father blackmailed his own brother-in-law with a prostitute. And Trump also got him out. You see, Trump is a house nigga of the Rothschilds, of the swarm. And his trajectory was set long time ago. And that's why he owes a lot to the swarm. Now, Wilbur Ross and Trump live, frankly, next door to each other in New York, and they live next door to each other in Palm Beach. That's how close these guys are. That's how close the Rothschilds are to Trump. So there you go. All right. Now, you've heard me use the word nigga, and it's important to understand what that is and why I use the term house nigga and field nigga. And all of us who have gone into the movement for Truth, Freedom, Health have decided to get off the plantation, unlike Trump. Trump is on the plantation. He's a full-blown house nigga. So is Booby Kennedy. And by the way, I'll go to Booby. I'll show you how he's all part of the Zionist swarm. But everyone knows Biden has openly said, I am a Zionist, right? So that's like, he's the obvious Zionist. Let me play you a video because there's a few people, leaders. There's frankly very few of them, probably 3 of them I can hold in a hand. Bertolt Brecht, Marx and Kamaraj, who was an Indian leader that I hold great respect for. But let me play you this important video, which I posted also. If you haven't seen this video, you should share it with all your kids, because you will understand the difference between a field slave and a house slave, or a field nigga and a house nigga. And it's none other, it's the definition comes right out of the words of Malcolm X. Let me play this for all of you. And if you haven't heard it, I've heard this for many, many years since I was a kid. But it's a great definition everyone should hear and share with everyone on the planet. Okay, so let me bring this up so we can all hear it. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to play this for you guys, and this is from Malcolm X. You'll hear it on your screens. Let me make sure before I share this, you have to make sure the stupid sound is shared, or the sound doesn't come through. All right, so here we go. All right, sound is on. So this is from Malcolm X. Here we go.
Black people like me talk to the slaves. They didn't kill him. They sent some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" He was as sick as the master. When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes. They ate the worst food. And they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes. Yeah.
All right. So that's a quick lesson in the difference between a house Negro and a field Negro. Now, why is this important to understand? You see, when I was in 9th grade, the high school I went to, I was very, very fortunate. My baseball coach was also the history teacher and is quite a cool guy. And what he had us do was, even if you got A's, you could have gotten an A+ in all your exams and everything. And I did. I worked very hard. In addition to playing lots of sports, right? It wasn't just a nerd. So Mr. Schmidt was his name. He didn't care if you got A's. You all had to do something extra. And that extra was you had to do an extra credit project. And the extra credit project was you had a list of books you could read. And these were not short books, long books. And then you had to write a detailed report and bring it up in class and present it, right? So you had to do this extra stuff. So the book I randomly chose, was probably the best choice I made in my life, was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and everyone should read it. All right, so I felt a kindred spirit with him, and I remember reading all this back when I was, 14, 13, 15 years old, okay? And so Malcolm X was a field Negro like myself and like a lot of people in our movement, Truth, Freedom, Health, and a lot of people who support Shiva for president, who got off the fucking plantation. Trump is fully on the plantation. Booby fucking Kennedy is on the plantation. And they work for the massa. And if you want to be on the fucking plantation, please go follow them. Please Make excuses for them. I have no interest in being on the plantation. My whole life has been getting off the plantation, and I want to shatter the swarm and burn down their plantation and free people. And if you want to do that, you can join us. But if you don't want to do that and you want to make excuses for them, stay on their plantation. But in order to do that, we have to understand the science of systems. We have to understand how they subjugate us. And that is what we teach people. And that is what we've been teaching people for a long time. And that is why our movement is so successful and it's explosively growing. And the quality of people that come to our movement are really, really fine human beings. They're self-reflective, but they do not want to be house Negroes. They're done with it. And this has nothing to do with color, because you have a lot of black bourgeois who are all house Negroes right now. You have a lot of Indian, brown-skinned people who are house Negroes. Barack Obama, he's a house Negro. Donald Trump, fucking house Negro. All right? These people are owned and paid for, and their careers are planned. They never have ever had to really work hard. Let me give you an example. Booby fucking Kennedy. Let's go to that fool. This guy is a plagiarist. Everything he does has been planned for him. He's never worked a day in his life. And I know personally the stuff he's stolen from me, my quotes, my lawsuits, and he has been fashioned by, you see what the swarm does, everyone. They have a lot of money and they look for these characters, these fools, okay? These dysfunctional individuals like Trump, rich boys who are out there, you know, hanging out, whatever, bullshitting. Maybe they have some social ways to manipulate people, and they swoop in on them and they use them as needed to manipulate other people. And Trump is a house Negro of the swarm. So is Booby Kennedy. I mean, I just share with you a few slides of this fool. Okay. Now, Booby Kennedy got thrown out of every fucking high school he went to. Couldn't even get through his law exam until 3 or 4 times. Okay. He's a fool. Okay. When he applied to Harvard, because of his family's quote unquote, all the money that they probably gave to Harvard and all their influence, he didn't even fill out his Harvard application. He just put Kennedy, Harvard. That's it. And he thought it was a big deal, and he gets accepted into Harvard. And he gets an A+ on one of the big, you know, very competitive essays. And he pushes it out there that he got this A+, right? Like he was a great and brilliant writer. The reality is he didn't write any of it, as people have pretty much finally concluded. What he did do was he had a roommate who was a dweeb by the name of Peter Kaplan in his dorm room. And Peter Kaplan, by the way, was an ardent Zionist, big time Zionist. Okay. And Peter Kaplan did as it goes, more than likely did Kennedy's homework. And it's obvious because of Kennedy's history of being a really, really awful non-working student. And as I'm showing you here, it says RFK Jr., his quote unquote, it should be quote unquote, brilliant Harvard roommate, his brilliant Harvard roommate, and the mystery who really wrote his A+ thesis. So look, to get an A+ thesis, you better write it good. But Kennedy was a party animal, didn't do any work. So how does he get an A+ thesis? Well, he connects with an ardent Zionist, smart guy, who writes his thesis. And that guy was this guy, Peter Kaplan, who ended up becoming editor of the New York Observer. And guess who owns the New York Observer? Who owned it who later owned it was Jared Kushner. All right. And here's Booby and his friend, Peter Kaplan. So Peter Kaplan was, you know, wanted to rub shoulders with the Kennedys, wanted to be among them, wanted to party with them, wanted to get some whatever pussy from that Bobby would give him. And so that's what they did. Okay. So he got, you know, Booby's action. And in return, he did all the work for Booby. But you got to understand that here's a picture of Peter Kaplan and Kushner later on. These binds, these connections that these people have goes very deep. And the reciprocity that they do, one guy is a nerd, the other guy comes from a bougie organized crime family. So he does all his work. People think he's some brilliant, you know, student when he's a complete fucking idiot. Okay. And that's what we're talking about. So, and you can do your own research on Peter Kaplan, a big time Zionist, but this is where Booby's quote unquote career begins. And more recently, as you know, when it came to the Palestinian issue, Booby said this about the Palestinians, and everyone again should be aware of what he said. Okay, this is what Booby said about the Palestinians who are being butchered and bombed and attacked for the last, 50, 60, 80 years. Okay, this was his quote unquote, right out of his mouth. This is what he said.
The Palestinian people are arguably the most pampered people by international aid organizations.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Even before this war, 78%.
So anyway, there you go. Booby saying that the Palestinian people are the most pampered people on the planet. His entire existence is owed to Zionism. And now at the age of whatever fuck age he is, he believes the Palestinian people are the most pampered people on the planet. Trump is owned by the Rothschilds. And spanning both of these people, it's interesting that Jared Kushner spans right there with them. And as I shared over a couple of videos ago, it is obvious now that came out in a FOIA request in a warrant, an FBI warrant, which was completely subsumed in the quote unquote the Russia hoax and the Mueller report. In that warrant report, it clearly gives evidence that Netanyahu is the one who put Trump into power by giving him data on Hillary Clinton through Roger Stone. So, and it's also further cleared that Israel is the center of election interference. And many, many organizations that they have in there do election interference as a full-time profession. So Trump was selected, and his selection was designed back in the late 90s. This is not something that happens overnight. Yes, Obama was a Manchurian candidate. Trump is a Manchurian candidate. But they're all Zionist cocksuckers. And what does Zionist cocksucking mean to the United States? As you guys know, that if anyone has gone to Shiva for President, I'm going to go there very quickly, and then we'll open it up to our hosts and other people. If you go to shivaforpresident.com, this entire Zionist cocksucking has had a direct effect on the American people. So if you go to shivaforpresident.com and you go to our download section that you can find right along the top, you will find a very, very important document. And I'm going to bring it up for everyone. And everyone should go to shiva4president.com, get a bumper sticker. You should download this important flyer, because this flyer gets at the heart of the issue with the swarms associations with Zionism have done. And if you look at this graph very, very carefully here, what do you see here? That the swarm over the last 60 years has been destroying the life expectancy of the American public. This is what's been going on. And you can see it right here. What do you see here? That since 1980, the American life expectancy has been going downward. This is why, as I said in my tweet recently, if you want to keep voting for these Zionist cocksuckers from Trump, Biden, and Kennedy, you're going to get more of this. And they don't give a fuck about you. They are completely intent on destroying the lifespan of the American people. Children's Health Defense Fund. Are you fucking serious? In the history of that organization, look what's been going on. Whether it's Trump, whether it's the Kennedys, whether it's the Bushes, whether it's the Clintons, whether it's the Bidens, all of them, Obamas, all of them have contributed to the destruction of the life expectancy of your child. If you have a child today, let this sink in, your child is going to have a shorter lifespan than you. And all of that has been brought to you by all of the Zionist cocksucking. That's what we're looking at. And the only force that can change that is a systems overhaul, which is what our movement, Truth, Freedom, and Health provides, and what our presidency is about, what my run for presidency is about, with the hundreds of thousands of volunteers behind us who work hard every day. So the question for you is, do you want to stop sucking Zionist cock? Do you want to get off the plantation? Do you want to be a field Negro, or do you want to be a house Negro? And it has nothing to do with race anymore. Do you want to get off the fucking plantation? Well, I'm off the fucking plantation, guys, and I want to take as many people off with me. And no one's going to control my language. No one is going to control my verbiage, because these people need to be given the most harshest words, the harshest four-letter words. You must teach your kids to call them fucker Carlson, Zionist cocksucker, etc., etc., etc. They do not deserve any respect. They don't work hard. They cheat. Look at Booby. He cheats on everything he does. He's cheating even now. Plagiarizes my material. He plagiarized another Zionist paper to get an A+. This is what these people do. All right? So stop in any way excusing them unless you want to be a house nigga. Stay with them. All right? So let me open it up. We have a Twitter space going on. I also opened up, for those of you who want to join, we have a live call-in show. And the number you can do for the call-in show is 857-997-9545. So we're going to have a dual sort of Twitter space / call-in. So let me take Saber. Go ahead. Saber, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead, Saber.
Hey, Dr. Shiva.
Yeah, so you can make. Yeah, so you have the floor, Saber. So go ahead.
I just want to start by saying thank you for Dr. Shiva for allowing me to escape to the field, being a field nigga instead of a house nigga. And I hope that a lot of you guys are joining us because, we've been fucked for so long. It's important to get on the ground, collect signatures, meet your local neighbors, and really get to teach them how it is to fight again for your freedom, for your rights. This is the only chance, and the movement is not going anywhere regardless. So you guys really better get your ass up and start working.
Yeah, and those of you who want to call in, you can call in to 857-997-9545. We've invested in a call-in tool so we can take calls too. And so I hope you want to do that. So let's go over to Nick Rivera. Nick's got go ahead, Nick. You're one of our speakers. Go ahead, Nick. What would you like to say? Nick is from Connecticut. Go ahead, Nick.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Shiva, for having this space. It's good to be here with everyone. This is the field Negro talking here. I'm off the plantation as well. So happy to have this opportunity to address everyone. And just to say that, the Zionist cocksucking is what has led to the detriment of this country, especially our children and our children's children. So, that has to end. And it's important to teach our children exactly what we're up against. So that way they can fight as well. That's why we got to learn the science of systems and use that to shatter the swarm. So it's so good to be here with everyone. And I just want to say this about, Booby. He talks about peace on one hand, right? But then he's all about being a warmonger. And he has a war going on in his throat. So he's just the epitome of contradiction. So I'm just glad we're talking and we're exposing and we're getting people like-minded here to get off the plantation. So thank you so much, Dr. Shiva. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Nick, can you tell us your journey, Nick, how you came to the movement for Truth, Freedom, Health? What was the journey and what suddenly got you involved in all of this? I think it's important for people to learn about the journey that you went through.
Sure, absolutely. So I started off getting politically involved because of Andrew Yang's campaign. And I met Crystal through that movement. And then I was introduced to you in Truth, Freedom, Health. And I got involved in your Senate campaign making calls. So I was still technically, politically a Democrat, but I didn't care. I liked your personality and I liked what you stood for. So that's the reason why I got on the phone and promoted your campaign, and I have no regrets about it. So, independently minded. I'm a infuriated, independent, nonpartisan here, and I'm just so excited to be part of this movement and with everyone. And I've been, going from someone like Gary Johnson to Yang to Shiva and Truth, Freedom, Health, and I'm where I belong now. So. I'm so happy to be here.
And when you looked at someone like Yang, we teach people the concept of the not so obvious establishment. What really made you learn that about Yang being really not any kind of fighter?
Well, in March of 2020, he just endorsed Biden, and he became a news anchor on CNN. So he had a job lined up with the swarm. That's why he had dropped out. He had suspended his campaign in February 11th of 2020. I was in the room when he did that. I was in New Hampshire. And so that really, really was, I would say, a wake-up call for me. And then as the weeks followed, I was just like, wow, he had set up a foundation. He's got a book deal. He's on CNN. He was not so obvious establishment the entire time. NSOE.
Yeah. So what he did was he talked a big game, but it basically is a careerist politician. This was essentially his second career. And that's what these guys do. They have no intention of building any campaign. They just put out words that sound good to people to manipulate people. And they have Madison Avenue people figuring this out. Let me bring in someone from, I'm going to bring in someone from our call-in. All right. So let me see if this is going to work. So it's the first time we're trying this. Let me bring in, I think this is going to work. Let's try. We have Michael Erdman from Indiana. And the topic is getting onto Lex Friedman's long, warm interview was hoping DrSHIVA may be able to do that. So hold on. Here we go. Go ahead, Michael. Can you hold on? Let me first of all make sure. Can people hear this on Twitter, etc.? Can you guys check? Yes. Is it also coming on YouTube, Ken? On the other platforms? Ken, can you check? It is. Okay, go ahead, Michael. Michael, how are you? Yeah, no, I know. You mean fucker? You mean fucker? You mean fucker, Carlson? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he won't talk to me. He will not talk to me. Well, no, because Lex Friedman is, look, the reason that guy comes out of nowhere, he's a Zionist hoodlum. Overnight, anyone grows on social media, they are promoted by the government and the swarm, okay? He couldn't get into MIT. He puts the word that he's an MIT research associate, all right? This guy is absolutely created. He will never put me on because the day he puts me on, his fucking career is over. Do you understand that these guys, he says love and da, 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 da. Oh, I'm into like putting everyone on. People have reached out to him. He will never put me on. He is like the epitome of the swarm. You have to understand, Michael, what's going on is they are manipulating people, okay? They're manipulating people by giving you these fake heroes, acting like you're getting news. Oh, these guys care. They're anti-establishment. They're being inclusive, right? It's all bullshit. The litmus test is who will put DrSHIVA on their show? Fucker Carlson won't because he steals all of our stuff. He's a CIA fucking operative. Lex Friedman is a CIA operative. That's who these guys are. Of course, Greenwald is the biggest fucker. Greenwald, Rogan, fucker Carlson, all fuck each other, all right? Because they will never put me on. Joe Rogan follows me. Tucker Carlson knows about me. We have all the evidence. He concealed the discovery of the backdoor censorship portal into Twitter in 2020, 4 years ago. He sat on the story. All right? Everyone needs to wake up. These people are part of the masses plantation. They work for the masser. They do not work for you. So everyone needs to let go of that house Negro mentality. These people work for the master, and their job is to keep you on the plantation. All right? Period. All right? It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to learn because, yeah, I hear you. It's a tough thing to learn because once you learn this, it means a burden now falls on you to get off the plantation. And you no longer can believe them. And most people in America, they want to keep fat, dumb, and happy, right? So they think fucker Carlson is your fighter. Lex Friedman? What the fuck? That guy's full of shit. Completely full of shit. No. He's not trying to be open. He's trying to take the advantage of a good guy like you so you don't want to climb the plantation's wall and get the fuck out. He wants to keep you on the plantation thinking they're doing something for you. You follow? What? Well, wait, stop. Yeah, but wait a minute, Michael, we have a lot of time. We're playing the long game. That's what oh my God, we don't have enough time. We don't, no. We have to build our movement. And so what I suggest you do is go to truthfreedomhealth.com and understand that I have uncovered. It's like I'm like Caesar on Planet of the Apes. You ever see that movie? You ever see that movie, that monkey that figures shit out and learns how to talk and gets all the other monkeys out? That's a role that I've been placed in this lifetime. I have figured out, that's why I have all these degrees from MIT. I interconnected the science of systems and I teach it. I am teaching the other monkeys to get off the plantation. And I'm telling you, I have cracked the code. So go to truthfreedomhealth.com and learn the physics, learn the science. You don't need to know math, but you will understand the dynamics. And once you raise your consciousness, you will never bring up that question, why don't you get on Lex Fridman's show? They will never put me on, ever. I will destroy their show. All their audience will come to me. It'll be over for fucking doofus Lex Fridman. He's a doofus, okay? He's created by the swarm, for the swarm. It's like they all mentally masturbate each other. It's disgusting to watch for me. It's all bullshit. Of course. Yeah, good to have you. Again, for everyone listening, yeah, be well. For everyone listening, you're welcome to call in to our show. This is Dr. Shiva. We'll go back to Twitter space. Our next speaker is Michelle. Michelle Santanosa. Michelle, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you, one thing is that they constantly seem to work with illusion, right? We can't allow them to erase history. Political correctness is just a Zionist tool to enslave language and perpetuate their power. You know, what's worse, saying house nigger or like ignoring the fact that they're serving masters and ignoring the masters there for the master's benefit? You know, it's a manipulation of focus. And that's really what we're doing is grounding. It's like you turn on the TV. These guys aren't real people. They're actors on stage. And it's so dramatic. I haven't watched TV in years. Turn it on. It's a telenovela. And the masses have become desensitized to this. And you're doing a service by waking them up.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Well, so to everyone listening, we have a global movement. And the movement is a movement for truth, freedom, health. And that movement is enabling people to get off the plantation. But you cannot get off the plantation if you don't understand the manipulation of those people who are manipulating you. And it's very, very deep stuff. And it's not something that you can figure out on your own. There is a physics, there's a science. This is why in the shattertheswarm.com video, I explained to all of you that you have to really understand the science. And it's very insidious. And, you know, I used to teach the science of systems at MIT in multiple courses. And it is what they use to manipulate you. This is how a small set of people are manipulating 8 billion people. So if you want to go to shattertheswarm.com, SHATTER, theswarm.com, you too can understand this knowledge. All right. Let's go to our next person. Thanks, Michelle. Let's go to Jill Jones from California. Go ahead, Jill.
Hi, Dr. Shiva. Thank you for having me on. You know, I think it's important to look back at the history of our country when you're speaking about this because, you know, slavery was a big issue here and the house slaves and the field slaves were divided, right? And there was this tactic of the house slaves offering some of the field slaves a position in the house, right? And by doing so, you further division. Not only was there the division between the house and the field, but then the field itself was divided. And so when these people were trying to get freedom, you know, one of these tactics used was to befriend them in such a nature. Look at what you can have. You can have the same as we have. We have it better here. They don't understand. These people they're less than us. And because of those tactics, you know, a lot of people, they'd try to get free, right? And they'd be rounded up, okay? So you have to look at how did this happen? They're being betrayed by some of the other field slaves, and they're being betrayed also by the house slaves. And so now that dynamic is still happening now. And that's what people need to really recognize when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Biden, when it comes to RFK. These are the people put in place to round up the slaves and bring them back, right? So they see these minds who are starting to awaken to what's going on. They're starting to understand. They think they can have freedom. And when they're on the verge of getting off that plantation, they're rounding them up and bringing them back so that they don't ever get their freedom. So they remain the slaves, and they can be used, exploited, and perpetuate the cycle and turn on each other and keep this going. So we need to understand the history of our nation and how this fight for freedom was fought, how it was achieved, and the interference. And we're seeing it again today. It's a different landscape, but it's the similar tactics that we have seen in the past. And so I think it's really important for people to understand that we don't want to be slaves. We want to get off the plantation, and do not let those people rounding up the slaves round you up back into the establishment.
Yeah, Jill, thank you. So I just want to let you know that our movement is about 60 to 70% women. Women really understand the dynamics, system dynamics. They understand the dynamics of oppression. And our movement has people from all different backgrounds. So when we say we are field Negroes, it's not referring to color. It's referring to the fact that we finally have a movement for the first time in humanity that is educating people on this dynamic that Jill Jones just shared with you. Let me repeat that again. For the first time in humanity, there is an organized, conscious movement, not just people getting awakened. I'm talking about a very, very conscious, potent movement, truthfreedomhealth.com, which has organized the science, the physics, people. We talk every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. We educate people. We educate. Every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. You can go to vashiva.com/orientation, join our town hall. Everyone's invited. But the first time, the one to, field Negroes who got off and figured this shit out are educating millions of people. And that's what happened in 2020. 500 million people heard about our movement, and they started waking up. And they see a completely, it's not even an alternative. It's not even a paradigm. It's a different universe that we are creating. And it's a universe where you jump out of the plantation and you're there. And we are educating people on this dynamic. And because someone like Jill is here, because someone like Michelle is here, and Nick is here, and Saber's here, and others, you finally have hope to fully get off the plantation. But as Jill said, they are freaking out right now. This is why they go to such effort, even in this own Twitter space, which is supposed to start on a scheduled time. They blocked it. And they're allowing this because we restarted it. But everything that they know, that there is a movement that has figured them out. So what are they doing? They're accelerating, attempting to mimic our words, with fucker Carlson suddenly talking about the life expectancy going down. He's never talked about this. He literally hears everything we say and then goes among the other fake populist, fake anti-establishment guys, and they repeat our words to try to keep, as Jill said, the field Negroes who are jumping off to Truth, Freedom, and Health, jumping off to Shiva for president, trying to sucker them back. And it ain't going to happen because our movement is growing explosively. Let me go over to our next person here. We have Rajesh. Rajesh, go ahead.
Okay, so this is premeditated AI bullshit, bro. I've had my hand up.
Oh, who's this?
This is Coyote.
Oh, hey, Coyote, go ahead.
All right. Well, so actually, it's quite intriguing or whatnot. And I help you practice active listening skills because I respect you just as you respect me or whatnot. But there's some truthful things that you said or whatnot. Or that Donald Trump is not being a great businessman. He has filed for bankruptcy several times and whatnot, but he does have some towers that stand up that say his name on it and whatnot. And I'm not big MAGA here and stuff like that. But I have to say, sir, for running for president, to be eating on your, during your stream, and I cuss like a sailor, so I'm not going to even go there on, the profanity and whatnot. But the whole thing is like, it's the message. You could have a better message because it's obvious that like you're reading from probably about a 3-page piece of paper that you have inscripted in your, what I'm saying, like you've done this for 2-3 weeks, just been writing on that paper or whatnot, and you claim the psychology or the science behind something, but you give no reference to what the science was. It's as if you are the one who created whatever this is. And I'm trying to understand what this is, honestly, sir. I really am. I'm not angry. I'm very open-minded. I'm a I did a psychology thing in college and everything like that. But the whole thing is, you can't use words like probably, probably the one that tutored, JFK and stuff like that. That's the whole thing about it. I believe that you could do some terrible things in this world if you, would sharpen up on a few, skills and whatnot. And I'd like to understand more, I'm saying, like, I'm trying to get what you're saying, because, but it takes it away when you use, such, like, just certain words, like, take away from, like, the intellect, I guess you'd say. We're talking about Malcolm X and stuff like that. We're not black. I don't even know how that comes from or whatever. And we can go to the we're all people thing aspect of it too. But were you alive when Malcolm was there? Probably not. We don't know what they were going through. That was a way different time. And to refer, use that as a reference or whatnot, I could expect that in some kind of, like black revolutionary, black matter, Black Lives Matter kind of space or something like that. But from you, sir, which you are educated, and I'm going to respect you because you're a doctor and whatnot. I would expect more. This is like, I don't know if it's like the raw Gen X or, what I'm saying, late boomer era that you come from or whatnot, attention seeking. I don't know what this is coming from because I don't know what you're saying really.
Well, are you ready to now shut up and listen? Because everything you've said is based on a biased idea of what life is about. So this is what, no, now you're going to listen, because the problem is, the unfortunate thing is that you have been, unfortunately, been manipulated by the same people you claim that you are supporting. So you're going to listen now if you want to listen. I'm not going to talk in a way that you want me to talk, by the way that you've been brainwashed, that how somebody educated should talk. You could come to my seminars, my scientific seminars, and you could watch all my videos and you'll see the educated, quote unquote, what you think is educated. You see, that's brainwashing that you've undergone. But I also grew up on the streets in New Jersey. I grew up in Newark. And there's another part of me which talks like everyday people. There's not one bucket you can put me into. So the brainwashing that you have, you're trying to impose on me. So get that very clear. So if you want to understand the science of systems and you're willing to let go of your ego, then you can come on to an open house and you can learn. But you have to be ready to learn, because the brainwashing that you've gone, because everything you said is ultimately in defense of cocksuckers like Trump and Biden and Kennedy, because you didn't say anything against them. They've been fucking you and the American white working class for 60 years. And you have no intention of talking about that. You want to talk to me about eating? What are you talking about? I work about 16 hours a day. Trump doesn't work 16 hours a day. None of these people, Booby doesn't work 16 hours a day. So when I eat, I'm fine with what I'm eating. And if that's what you want to talk about, then you deserve to stay on the fucking plantation. But if you want to get your head out of that and you want to expand your consciousness to understand that someone like me can have a range of expressions, can have a range of discourse, can have a range of beingness that goes beyond talking the way you think an MIT PhD should talk. I won Fulbright Awards. I presented in front of prime ministers, okay? I've been in the worlds that you could never imagine that to be in, and thinking that if I was in those worlds, that I should have been co-opted by them. So you don't know who I am. You haven't walked in my shoes. So do not make any assumptions about me. That is a prejudiced individual and has nothing to do with race. Malcolm X spanned beyond race. And if you read Malcolm's life, and he was actually alive when I was born. And Malcolm X realized at the end of his life, that ultimately there will be a clash between the oppressed and those who oppress them, and it would not be based on the color of the skin. And that's what you need to get through your head. And all of these people, whether it's Jesse Jackson, whether it's Al Sharpton, whether it's fucking Donald Trump, or whether it's, Joe Biden or Booby Kennedy, who implicitly in your subtext you're defending. All of those people have sold people of all races out, and they want to fuck over the American people right now. And that's what they're doing. And your brainwashing and the way you proceeded to attempt to critique me, which had no substance to it, reveals the nature of the fact that you believe these people are still your saviors. But if you are truly a man of what you said, I want to learn, well, I invite you. Come every Thursday. We have an open house. Come and learn. And we've put all this knowledge together. It took me 50 years to figure out. Yeah, there is a science of systems. It's not me saying it. I've written about it. I've published about it. There is a fundamental physics that'll teach you about the not so obvious establishment, that there are fundamental laws in the universe that we can use to build a movement. And that's what you need to understand. And if you're willing to understand that, great. Let's go to Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, that's exactly what I was talking about. All he's talking about is a PR image. And you know what? That is the Zionist mentality. They keep telling us how we're supposed to speak, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to feel. And you know what? I'm kind of sick of that. I don't understand how someone who talks like him isn't sick of it. I mean, we need to stand up and own our voice. That is freedom, is being able to speak your mind and articulate your experience without people telling you how to do so.
Yep. Go ahead, Jill.
It just sounded like to me you're trying to tell him to stay in his lane. And I think we need to understand that we don't have lanes. This is one of the tactics they use to divide people. And I see this a lot in California. People they can't comment about someone's lifestyle, about something that they see that's different from their racial perception. And they can't touch that area because it's not theirs. So they've divided all of these fights for everyone's liberation to be segregated by your race, your social class, economics, whatever it may be. But that is just an arbitrary line in order to prevent you from coming together. Like it shows that you may not have been around a very diverse populace for you to think that we cannot use Malcolm X, a champion of all people. We can't use him as an example for our freedom because we don't belong to the same racial demographic. That is, to me, absolutely insane. That's just like Marvel trying to decide that you can only have a hero that you connect to that's the same, you identify with that same race, that same look as that person. That's not what we need to do. Like, you don't just follow one archetype because, this is the one that I'm segregated to be aligned with. No, that's not how it works. Malcolm X, he went to his pilgrimage to Mecca. And when he went there, he saw his ummah, this is all the Muslims that were gathered there of all different racial backgrounds. And he said that Islam, because he was a Muslim, he said Islam had solved the race issue because he found that all these people of all different backgrounds had come together and get along. So at the end of his life, his short-lived life, he saw the true brotherhood of all people. And now Malcolm X was not just for Black America. He had to fight for Black America because of what they were going through at that time. It was very needed for what he was doing. But this fight was for everybody. And he saw that very clearly. And we cannot just decide that we cannot take one of the most important freedom fighters of our time and decide that if we're not Black, we can't listen to him or use him as an example. More people need to listen to Malcolm X. And the one who needs to be silenced that I don't see anyone criticizing is MLK. MLK will have your head beaten in. And that's the one they promoted, not the true revolutionaries like Malcolm X. So we need to understand that you need to break out of that thinking that you have to stay in some kind of lane and that you belong to one place.
Jill, you nailed it. It's very interesting, Jill. When the facts came out about my inventing email, I did it when I was a 14-year-old kid in Newark, New Jersey. Now, that bothers a lot of people, this whole idea of staying in your lane. Now, I did many things after I came to MIT. But when the story came out that I had invented email, when my stuff went into the Smithsonian, it was like a bomb went off in the universe. And the biggest people who hated that were not the white working class, but it was a liberal elite. And it's precisely what you just said, is that I was not staying in my lane. Let me explain what that means. You see, in 1978, I created the first email system when I was a 14-year-old kid. I worked my butt off. Email was not created by the military. It was created by me in Newark, New Jersey, in a small medical college. Now, I never spoke about it. When I came to MIT, it was on the front page. I got the first U.S. copyright for it, officially recognizing me as the inventor. And then I went off and I very humbly did many, many things. And then in 2011, when that work went into the Smithsonian, the people who came out against it were the academic liberal elites who could not believe a 14-year-old kid had done this. They had already written the narrative of the story of email. Now, the facts are so black and white. A friend of mine, Jill, who was the editor of a major newspaper, he said, wow, He goes, you did fucking invent email. It is so obvious. He goes, what's intriguing about your story is why there is even a controversy. And then as I spoke through this with various friends, what was revealed was I was not willing to stay in my lane. You see, this gentleman, Coyote, okay, would probably want me to stay in my lane. And that lane is, if you are an Indian, you're supposed to shake your head left to right and say, okay, you can beat me on the fucking head, okay? That's what Martin Luther King and Gandhi taught Indians to do. Well, I'm not a fucking good Indian. I didn't stay in my lane. I spoke out. I defended the fact that I invented email. I didn't take it up the backside. And I filed lawsuits. I won $1 million lawsuit defending the fact that I invented email. You see, I'm not a fucking good Indian. Indians like me are supposed to speak properly the British English, right? Sorry, I don't fucking do that. So if that's what you want me to be, that's real racism. So fuck off. That's my answer to you, Coyote. And you can go study it, and you can come to an open house, and when you study and you want to get off the fucking plantation, then you can talk. But until you apologize for the nonsense you just said, you're not qualified. But you need to go get recognizing that it is people like you who are keeping the white working class on the fucking plantation. Go ahead, Rajesh.
Yes, to your Dr. Shiva, if you could stress the grave importance of the First Amendment, because I'm from Singapore, to everyone here, we do not have First Amendment. The law ministers already passed a law where if I were to say something that they find threatening or it is disruptive, I can be called in and questioned, and if they can charge me if they want to. So you're the last frontier, Americans. Better fight for your First Amendment all out. Yeah, Dr. Shiva, all to you.
Yeah, Rajesh, I think it's really important what you just said. You know, it was I who discovered the fact that there's a backdoor portal into Twitter in 2020. And it was fucker Carlson, and that's what you should call him, fucker. Carlson, that's his name. He's the one who concealed the lawsuit. If you go to winbackfreedom.com, it's all there. I filed those lawsuits. I got the first federal injunction in the United States, and we showed that there's a backdoor portal into Twitter. And then we exposed the entire censorship infrastructure, which recently a CIA operative, Mike Benn, stole from me, and fucker Carlson had him on to try to steal the news so they could do a limited hangout. But the key thing what Rajesh just shared is why is all of this being done? And if you follow the history of the Rothschilds and the Crown, all right, there is an organization called the Atlantic Council. You can go study them. They're the ones who funded all the research over at Harvard, at Oxford, and they're the ones who helped create the backdoor censorship portal into every major social media company. It was architected out of London. And guess what? The Rothschilds come from London, and they're the ones who funded Trump. And isn't it interesting that it was under the Trump administration on November 16, 2018, that CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency Act, was passed unanimously by both wings of Congress, both wings. So-called Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, the constitutionalists, signed it. Both wings signed that into law, and Trump fucking signed it. And then he's talking about fighting for the First Amendment. He's the one who created the infrastructure. He's the one who created the conditions to allow that infrastructure to be created. So that's what's been going on. Zionist hoodlums run America. So if we want to end the brutality in Palestine, we have to end the Zionist occupation of America. And I've witnessed it all my life. And Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. Zionism is a belief that a small set of people can manipulate the rest of the world. A small set, and they're the chosen people. That same philosophy is what Hitler espoused. Nazism. By the way, the Rothschilds and the City of London and the Crown promoted Hitler, along with American imperialists, the same people who promoted the Zionists. Brahmanism, out of the quote-unquote Hindu religion. They use religious things, but Brahmanism believes the same thing. A small set of people are the upper caste and everyone else is dog doo-doo, okay? So Brahmanism equals Nazism equals Zionism. So this cuts across all races. So if you go study it, Zionists butchered Jews. So anytime a Zionist tries to call you anti-Semitic, make two things clear. That first of all, there's only a small fraction of Jews who are Zionists. The majority of the majority of Zionists are evangelical Christians in the Bible Belt who've been manipulated by their evangelical pastors who report up through Israel and up to Netanyahu. And you can look at these. These are absolute things that you can just do a little bit of study and connect the dots. 70 million American Christian Zionists who've been bamboozled to think that the eschatological view of Christianity is Christianity, when it's far from it. So everyone needs to do a little bit of studying. And that's what's occurred in the United States. The United States has been hijacked by Zionism. Trump is a fucking Zionist. Fucker Carlson is a Zionist. Joe Rogan is a Zionist. He's having a big dinner. Who's at the head of the table? Literally. Ben Shapiro. Candace Owen, Zionist. They all are one big fuckfest that does not give a damn about the American people. And they surely hate the First Amendment, except for you. Except for them, I mean. Let's go over to, who do we have here? Kim Patriot. Go ahead, Kim. Kim Patriot. Kim Patriot. Can she unmute? Okay, go ahead, Alana.
I think Kim might not know how to unmute her mic. It's at the bottom left once you're in the space. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there are people out there who want to give unsolicited advice to you, Dr. Shiva, and it's always from people who have no idea what the course is about. At least he did admit that, but with him knowing that, he should dig some more before he comes on and starts taking the reductionist approach and, like Jill said, putting everybody in buckets as if you can't speak to a Malcolm X or a Rosa Parks or something because of your skin color. That's racism in itself. And so coming from the background that you've come from with the caste system, which as you, again, is completely the same thing. And that's what we're facing now with the Zionism, and people, they don't understand what that is. You have to constantly repeat it so that people can understand it. And then if they go through the course and take it seriously, there's the rare case somebody half-asses the curriculum, and then they think they can come around and talk about it, even though they know nothing about systems. They still, you can't half-ass a course and then think that you can go tell the person who developed the course about it. It's just ridiculous. And so until people actually educate themselves, join the movement, go through the curriculum, take it seriously, go through it many times, and are able to identify the real problem and the real solution, then yeah. And
yeah, Ilana, we lost you. Hello?
thing to say to somebody who works all day long. And when they get off work, they work some more through volunteering or educating themselves or whatever. That's what real everyday people do. It's just unbelievable that somebody would be that petty. It's just petty. So the country is being completely, dismantled, and it's falling apart, and people want to worry about stupid shit, and it's ridiculous.
Right.
And,
I shouldn't be eating.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't be eating.
It's good for you.
It's like,
good
fuck
for your
off.
health.
Fuck off. I'm going to eat when I want to eat, and you can go fuck yourself. Let's go to Saber. Go ahead, Saber.
Pretty much Alona mentioned everything, I agree with that. The fact that someone would even bring that up, but what I really want to mention is I don't understand this mindset that people, like, who are you actually mad about? Are you mad about the people who run this fucking world and that plunge us into more further evil, or you guys want to start talking about nonsense like someone eating on the live stream, and even the audacity to attack someone with the caliber like DrSHIVA? You know, actually, Zionism is what really united me and made me come across DrSHIVA, because I was even skeptical of that, because anyone who talks about against Zionism, all of a sudden, you know, they're gone. You know, you never see them again. And I've been here for 7-8 months, and you're telling me that DrSHIVA's YouTube channel grows 2,000K with followers? No fucking way, man. So he's being censored big time. And for all of you, you know, I just don't understand the people who criticize this to that level. Also, go look at the work that DrSHIVA did even well before he ran for political office. I mean, all the research papers he published, all the cytosol, you know, you can go on and on and on. I mean, he's been very consistent. And the moment he started talking about Zionism, that's when I realized, you know what, I got to be on board with this, because that is key to actually, you know, really putting an end to everything we're seeing around. And I just really wanted to mention that. Also, it seems, finally, on a final point, I notice there's a lot of people who, you know, it's okay not to know something because we all learn, right? But it's the attitude of not wanting to learn. It's the attitude of, you know, you're being so arrogant, like the gentleman was, he thinks he's like coming across as humble or whatever it is, but he's so arrogant that he doesn't want to learn. And that's the problem. It's okay not to know something.
Yeah, but I would, Saber,
something.
I would even go to the extent of saying, you guys know that, you know, and I really don't think we should spend any more time on this, because the establishment watches all of our moves. To your point, you know, my followers on Twitter have been stuck at 300,000 for about 2 years, right? And they go down. My followers on YouTube have been stuck at 250,000 and they're flat. My followers on Facebook are 540K, and we have filed one of the biggest lawsuits now against Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and all those guys. So they're afraid to take me off, but they keep me in a digital cage. That's what's going on. Keep the field nigga in a cage. That's what they're doing. All right? He got off the plantation, but we're going to keep him on our plantation. And everyone needs to understand that everything I've done, our movement has done, comes from incredible hard work. And the unfortunate thing is we live in a world right now where people don't do the work. They do not want to learn. They don't want to put the time in, but they talk as though they know shit. And guess what our movement does? We don't want those people. If you're not humble to want to learn, because real skills take effort to learn. There's a body of knowledge that we have developed on understanding the knowledge of systems, how to shatter the swarm. And our movement is not looking to convince everyone. We will treat people harshly who don't have the humility to learn, but we will embrace people with great compassion and who want to learn, because we want to build a movement that is sustainable for the long term, that gives people the opportunity to truly win truth, freedom, health. And that's what this is about. This is not about having dumb fucks, incompetent people who don't want to put the time to learn and focus, as Saber, you said, on nonsensical shit. We don't tolerate that. And that's what this is about. So let me bring a couple of other people in. Crypto King, go ahead, Crypto King.
Hey, good morning, DrSHIVA and everybody. Thank you for having me on. I'm the guy that puts the hashtag Hexagon for Shiva. The Hexagon community is probably the biggest, smartest, and strongest community in crypto. And we welcomed DrSHIVA to our podcast a few weeks ago. And that was an awesome experience for the audience. But I want to... you know, you come up with these nice terms like star fuckers and fucker Carlson. I have a new one for you. Soap, the Zionist version of woke. You know, woke is like the wokeism has been, taking over the atmosphere of everybody talks about. So Zoke, don't go Zoke, right? All right, thank you, DrSHIVA.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to someone who's been waiting here. Malaru, sorry. Lala, go ahead.
Hi guys.
Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right.
I agree so much with everything you're saying, and I want to give like an analogy that actually Ian was saying in his show the other day about all these people keep yelling fire, 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 and what we're trying to do is like say, well, okay, there's a fire. The water's right there. The buckets are there. That's like start putting out the fire. Let's call the fire department. But the problem is right now we don't have the fire department. We have all this rotating puppet show of people dressed as firemen. Like all the whole politicians globally are dressed up in a fireman's outfit, but they don't actually have a fire truck. They don't have a hose. They don't have anything. So at this point, what we're doing is we're saying, there's the water, here's the buckets. Let's start putting the water on the fire while we try to find some real and train some real firemen. So I just want to say I agree so much with what you're saying. But instead of pointing at the fake firemen, it's time to train some real firemen, because we're just giving them free advertising. Look at that guy in a fireman's outfit with a plastic fireman hat on. Those guys aren't going to do dick all. They never have. They never will. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, let's not point our fingers at the man in the fireman outfit anymore. Let's train some actual firemen who can drive the truck, get out the hose, and put out the fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what our movement does, right? So we have to do two things. First is part of what's happened, Lala, for the last 60 years of building movements is that the establishment years ago used to just destroy people openly when movements came up. It was called open fascism, right? Assassinate people, kill people. I'm talking about the real people, not organized crime family feuds like the Kennedys. And then starting in the 60s and 70s, they realized that they didn't want to create martyrs anymore. They didn't want to create real people's heroes. So they started creating fake heroes. And this phenomenon has not been fully understood by people. So this is why Trump was created, Bernie Sanders. And you have to, so in 2020, 2021, we had to do the shit work of taking it on the chin, exposing these people. A lot of people, a lot of women, wealthy bourgeois women gave Booby fucking Kennedy a lot of money. And I was the first one to expose him for what he really was. He endorsed Hillary Clinton 3 times, warmonger, pro-Monsanto, pro-GMO. People are like, what are you saying? He wouldn't do that. Yes, he did. Here are the facts. It's like people accept these people at face value. Trump, Joe Rogan, etc. But concomitant with that, we've always been building solutions. And let me just play you a video so everyone understands that solution is fundamentally a 2-part solution. You have to be a warrior and a scholar. A warrior and a scholar. The scholar must understand there is a physics, there is a science, and you're looking to someone who's got a bunch of degrees from MIT. It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy to get those. It's very hard at the time I went to MIT to get into MIT, a PhD. And I spent my entire life trying to figure out how the swarm works, how to shatter them. And that resulted in a fundamental set of scientific principles. You can apply that to your body. You can apply that to politics. You can apply it to anything, but they're engineering systems principles. And those principles people must learn if they want to be serious about building a movement. Otherwise, it's just dilettante. So I'm going to play you a quick video and just get a glass of water so you guys can listen to this. We have allowed our country to be taken over from within, and the end goal is you will have a homogenized world where we will become slaves, because there is a condition among the elites that really thinks they're better than you, deep down inside them, that you don't deserve the freedoms you have. They don't. This reality is what people need to wake up to, and we need to all unite working people. There's only one movement that can do that, and that is the movement that we started creating here in Massachusetts, the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health. Look, I've been a student of politics since I was a 4-year-old kid, studying revolutionary movements, left wing, right wing. There's a physics, there's a nuclear science to destroying the establishment. To build a bridge, you need to understand Newton's equation. You need to understand the laws of gravity. You need to understand Poisson's ratio. There is a way to build a revolution. And that's why I put this together. My goal is to train an army of truth, freedom, and health leaders. We don't need followers like social media. We need leaders, but they need training because the educational system does not teach them history, nothing. So in 3 hours, that's what I've started doing. That's the solution. We got to train people. First, with understanding what a system is, the dynamics of all systems that affect nature. The second is understanding the interconnection between truth, freedom, and health. Freedom is the ability to move freely, communicate freely, talk freely. Without freedom, you cannot convert ideas, hypothesis into truth, which is science. And without freedom, you can't really get to truth. And without truth, you make up fake problems and fake solutions, which means you destroy our health. And without health, which is the infrastructure of us and our body, you can't fight for freedom. Truth, freedom, health. Third concept is it has to be bottoms up. Working people, people who work uniting. And what the right wing has done is whenever you say working people unite, that must be communist. Meanwhile, they've let the Democrats run unions, which suppress workers. Completely corrupt. But when you look at the arc of American history, it's been when working people came up. We need to go local. Every solution I'm coming up with as a part of this movement, we're giving the science, which is the truth, and then we tell people what they can do on the ground. Like with election fraud, you don't need to wait for some lawyer. Our goal is to train people to go local, to go local, to go local, fight locally. Forget lawyers, forget politicians, forget celebrities. You got to learn politics, and there is a science to it. They lock us down, we should be ready to shut them down. And the fourth part of this principle is the not so obvious establishment. So when you look at a system, there's always something that disturbs you from getting to your goal. Well, the biggest disturbance is the not so obvious establishment, which are those people who claim they're for you, on the left and the right. The Al Sharptons who tell black people I'm for you. The Tucker Carlsons. Do you think any true anti-establishment person will ever be on Fox or CNN? I don't think so. They both mislead working people back into the establishment. Without this solid understanding of political physics and theory, you're screwed. You're going to follow on the left wing, Bernie Sanders. Oh, he said something. Or Robert Kennedy. Scumbags. Or you're going to follow some right-wing talk show host. They're not going to lead us to liberation. It's us. We're building a bottoms-up movement. And that political physics, it's a nuclear science of change. Bottoms up. We have to organize to understand that there is people who talk a good game and then look at what they actually do, left and right. I'm sorry, Sean Hannity may say some good things, but I don't see the urgency in his voice to get something done. And it can only come when you weaponize yourself with the right knowledge. You need to be able to identify a rat. You know, Christ didn't go after the Romans, right? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees who screwed him up. His own quote-unquote people. And that's where we're at. So these four concepts I've built into a curriculum where people can go to truthfreedomhealth.com, and it's an educational program. We need to train people in political theory. You need to have physics, and I've created that curriculum. People need to get educated. We need to get educated fast. And within a half an hour, I can teach people. 2 years of MIT control systems, I teach people those concepts. Then I apply it, anyone can understand it. And then you say, oh, I got to build a bottoms-up movement. They have to get politically astute, and then they have to go locally and act, not sit there on social media. They have to act locally, defy locally, do civil obedience locally, but with knowledge on how to build a movement. Now, the Senate campaign's expanded to the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health, and they can find it on truthfreedomhealth.com, so people can sign in, they can get access to a bunch of videos. If they want to take a course and become a Truth, Freedom, Health leader, I offer a full scholarship there, but we want people to make a commitment that they'll study, that they'll get certified, that they'll go do activities on the ground. So go to truthfreedomhealth.com.
Those people who are manipulating the world to deceive people, to keep people on the plantation. And that dynamic is what we're exposing. Without exposing that dynamic, people think that someone else from them is going to help us. So let's go to Max. Go ahead, Max. Or Matthew.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva, for all that you do. And I've been a volunteer for your campaign since last November. I saw you gave a brilliant speech at MIT, which blew me away. It changed my life. And I've been on board with you ever since. Thank you for exposing Zionism and the dialectic and the genocide in Gaza, amongst many other things, the political swarm, the not so obvious establishment, all that it's for. And, you know, in regards to Trump, I think it's amazing that so many MAGA and Q-tards can still follow this total Zionist traitor clown. He didn't lock up Hillary. He locked us down. He gave us the CARES Act and wasted or spent $8 trillion plus on COVID, which also gave us remdesivir, which killed people, including someone in my family, my beloved grandmother, God bless her soul. By the way, the sick irony is she was one of his supporters. And she was getting out of the hospital. She was doing well. And because of the deadly protocols implemented through the CARES Act signed by Donald Trump. She died from remdesivir, her and many countless other Americans and people around the world, thanks to this asshole, this devil. Where are the magatards and Q-tards questioning Trump for all his tyrannies? He gave us CISA. He signed the PrEP Act and gave legal blanket immunity to pharma. I mean, he told Klaus Schwab he was doing a great job while he went to go watch his daughter, Ivanka, who's a young global leader at the WEF, give a speech. And he didn't build a wall. He didn't drain the swamp. He hired the swamp. Bill Barr, John Bolton, Pompeo, Stephen Miller, all those other Zionist hoodlums. It's a total joke. People need to wake the fuck up. You're going to get offended because Dr.SHIVA or anyone dares to eat or swears or call us what we really are. We're fucking niggers. We're slaves. All of us human beings are slaves on their globalist plantation. They're literally killing our children. They're depopulating the planet. And we're going to get offended over curse words. Fuck you. Dr.SHIVA is the only one out there who has the integrity, the intelligence, the character, the honest goodwill to fight. He fights tirelessly. I've seen it with my own eyes, day and night. So screw you fucking non-sayers. Get on board. You want to stay a plantation slave, or do you want your freedom and country back? You better get off your ass and join Truth, Freedom, Health. It's the only movement out there, real movement that exists, that's going to get us all off, all of us house niggas, off the plantation. God bless you, Dr.SHIVA. Thank you, everyone here from Truth, Freedom, Health. Everyone listening, go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Sign up now. Choice is yours.
Thanks, Matthew. By the way, Matthew is, works very hard in multiple jobs, and he helps our campaign. He's he works in civil engineering, but he's also an audio engineer. And I think, Matt, we should play at some point. He's done a great song called Trump the Chump, which we'll play and we'll broadcast out. But our movement is made by the working people for the working people. Go look at fucking Booby's movement. It's made by a bunch of fucking boobs who want to have their boobs fondled by Booby. Seriously. And our movement is actually made by working people who despise people like him. Go look at Trump's movement. He takes advantage of the American white working class. A friend of mine who had worked for him said his number one moneymaker on there is those MAGA hats. That's most of where he spends his money on. He is driven by a marketing machine which sends you emails all day and which is literally robbing the wallets of everyday working people. And he knows what he's doing, and he's part of the Zionist swarm. It is the most insidious fuckfest that's going on. And to Matthew's point, we are the only movement. Yes, if there was another fucking movement, I'd be spending full time on Cytosolve and Systems Health. I wouldn't be doing this, but there is no other fucking movement. So we've had to build this ground up. We have someone like Crystal out in the fucking snow with other volunteers in Idaho right now collecting signatures. That's what we do. Booby Kennedy doesn't do that. He gets $15 million from Zionist hoodlums to go hire signature vendors. Our people get on the ground in every part of this fucking country. This is the only movement, de facto, unequivocally. So anyone who tries to malign our movement or act stupid and act dumb like that future guy did, you're not going to be involved with us. We've gotten very, very smart, and we don't have time to coddle you. We're not people pleasers. We're not going to support that. You're going to be, you can stay on the fucking plantation. You can keep sucking Zionist cock all day fucking long. We don't give a fuck about you. We're here to find those people who really want to build a movement. And those are the people we're going to educate. Those are the people we're going to give our time to. And that's already happening. So you can be left behind sucking Zionist cock all day. Good luck. Let's go over to Queen of the Juice. Go ahead, Queen of the Juice. I think we have to give her ad as a speaker. Go ahead. And then we'll go over to, go ahead. Hello? Queen of the Juice, you can speak.
Hey, sorry I didn't hear you. I was transferring over. Dr.SHIVA, I was just wanting to say, wow, I love your spirit. I love everything you're saying. I'm on board with everything you're saying. And I've got a lot of songs that I'm mocking Trump and the whole, genocide and crimes against humanity he just participated in. So thanks so much for being so vocal about all these things, because it's incredible. And thank you. I'm really glad that I made it this far to be able to see somebody like you saying these things.
Well, good to have you. Thank you. But remember, our movement is growing. We have people like Jill and Michelle and Sabir and Ken. We have a lot of people that this movement is affecting. It's creating incredible leaders also across the planet. Rajesh. But one of the things that Rajesh said that everyone needs to understand, he's in Singapore. People need to understand that the American working class still has the First and Second Amendments, even though Elon Musk and Fucker Carlson, all these people have helped destroy it and conceal the fact that it's being destroyed online. The reality is that those in power, the crown, it's incredible. Donald Trump praises the Queen of England, praises her, okay? Because he's from the crown. He's appointed by the crown. So is Booby Kennedy. So is Biden. That we must recognize that these people have no interest in the American working people. They actually spit on you. They laugh at the American working class. They're laughing their way to the bank. And their number one goal is to make sure that particularly the white American working class, which is who Trump was created to manipulate, are totally made into slaves and are dumb fucked. And that's what Trump is doing. That's what Trump was anointed for by the Rothschilds to do, to completely castrate the American white working class, to have them wear his stupid fucking MAGA hats, to make sure that they comply, that they believe that he is some populist, when it's all fake populism. So the MAGA tards are as bad as those people on the left who are wearing masks all day. That's what it's become. And that's the manipulation that's taking place. And Trump laughs at these people. He's laughing his way to the bank. Booby laughs at all the women that give him money. And that's what these people are doing. They laugh at you. Our movement has great respect for working people. That is why we have the decency, the integrity to critique these people boldly. And we are looking for those people who want to build a movement. And we've created all that infrastructure. Go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Get involved. Go to Shiva4president.com. Get a bumper sticker. Help us get signatures. We need to get on the ballot in every state. And we are doing it the good old-fashioned way, actually doing the work, not cheating, not paying off signature vendors, not going to Zionists and begging them for money. We actually are doing it. So if you really want to have integrity and you want to really be an American, get involved in our movement. If you want to suck Zionist cock, go to their movement. Keep sucking all the way down to your slavery. Let's go to another person here is holding their hand. Herc Singh. Herc. Go ahead, Herc.
Dr. Shiva.
How are you, Herc? Sorry we kept you waiting. Sorry we kept you waiting. Go ahead.
I always get a kick of listening to you critique our fascist rulers. More power to you on that score. I was wondering about the junior debates. The founder mentioned that Junior and West declined. I was wondering if you were invited, and if you were to be invited next time, would you attend?
Which was this some group that claims they're inviting all the independents? That group?
It's called Free and Equal Elections.
Yeah, they're not going to invite us. They're a bunch of fucking Zionist hoodlums. I mean, I am the truly leading independent candidate. And Cornel West is a fucking buffoon. They pull him out of the closet, like I said, every 4 years or some on TV show to bark at people to act. He's like their token radical, right? The fact that they didn't invite us, the fact that we're not even there, tells you that it's a bogus, not so obvious establishment independent debate. You see, the interesting thing is my entire life has been like this, meaning I've always worked my butt off. And even I've mentioned to you guys, even when I was in the Zionist school I went to, I was the best student, and they kept me out of taking an exam to determine who was the best student. It's so fucked up. And that's what these people are doing again. They do not want the best from the bottom to rise to the top. They do not want that. So they manipulate all of these so-called competitions. And this is what they do to working people throughout the world. There are so many incredible people at the bottom who are actually suffocated by this fake bullshit competitions that they run. They're all rigged competitions. Jill Stein, a fucking liberal Zionist, all of those people. Why wouldn't I not put me on? A guy who's worked his ass off, gotten all those degrees, won all these awards, invented email, writes papers, does science, works his butt off. It's a disgrace. It's like slapping every working person in the face. All of you guys should be upset that they do this openly. The big elephant in the room is the Truth for Health movement, Shiva for president, and yet they such blatantly slap you guys in the face by not even inviting us. But it doesn't bug us because this is what they will do to the real agents of change. The only way out of this is for us to build our own movement. We don't give a fuck about them. We are the field niggers off their plantation. We don't give a fuck about them. If they don't want to invite us to their dance, let them stay on their plantation. No, but they didn't invite us, and they won't. Herc. Sorry, Herc, you can finish up if there's anything else you want to say.
Well, I have a friend who has a connection with them, so I'm going to try and needle them because they're...
Yeah, and tape everything they say. Say, do you mind if I tape you of why you're not inviting Dr. Shiva?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, tape it. Say, look, let's have an open discussion alive on why you're not inviting Dr. Shiva. All right? And you'll find out that they don't want to be taped, that they are as bad as the swarm. They're the neo-establishment swarm. Let's go to Live One TV. Go ahead.
Right. So I'm right here in New York City area and want to have other people who support DrSHIVA who even want to get together. And we have a studio right beside Astoria Boulevard subway station. It's safe. It is safe. And we're on the ground floor and have been there for a few years. And just DM me, okay, if you're in the New York area, and even if you're not, and you want to be able to discuss DrSHIVA and his ideas, because we've already run a few events like that. Thanks a lot, DrSHIVA, for everything you do. Okay, thank you.
Great. Let's go over to, that was Ian. Let's go over to Andre Menegalt. Andre, go ahead, Andre.
How you doing, Dr. Shiva?
Good, Andre.
First of all, I don't know where you get off using field nigger and the N-word. Are you a Negro or African American?
Well, first of all, Andre, that term is not owned by the first. If you want to go back,
I said, where do you get off?
I can use that word.
Callously.
Yeah, I can use that word. What's wrong with using that word?
I didn't question whether you could use it. I said, where do you get off using it so callously and insensitively?
No, I'm not using it callously and sensitively.
Many of whom aren't actually from that community. It's
Well, you don't. Well, first of all, let me just tell you, there are black people who are house niggas. Okay, and if that's what you want to be, you can be that. All right. Let me finish. The first slaves were Indians who came from South India, and you should go study your fucking history. So don't tell me this. Don't try to manipulate my language, and ask yourself what you have done for black people. Next. Bullshit. It's unfortunate what's happened with the civil rights movement. They think Martin Luther King freed black people. It was Malcolm X who did the work. Martin Luther King literally caged black people. That's what he did. Martin Luther King did that. He was brought in by the Kennedys to manipulate the entire civil rights movement, to say, don't use certain words, don't use this, as though that's freedom. No, we are all, I'm not, but most people are house niggas on the liberal white plantation. And we should all use that word, because that word now applies to everyone, black, white, etc. If you keep wanting to follow the swarm, you are literally on the plantation. So I will use that word, and no one's going to tell me not to use that word. Everyone should use that word. Let's go to Matt Stone. Matt Stoneman. Go ahead, Matt. Let's add Matt as a speaker. No one owns those words. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, I just wanted to say we are living in the midst of a hero in history. And the thing that is the most intriguing is that you're giving all these solutions and you're giving all this power to the people. So anyone that's not studying or hasn't looked into what you're doing with Cytosolve, with the clean food movement, with Truth, Freedom, Health, the education platform for your body, your system, to where it's all these solutions are, we're bombarded with whatever you're passionate about, you can join in and you can change the world. So I just want everyone to, I'm just so grateful and I'm honored to be in your presence for during this time. With, and I know you feel that. I hope you feel that gratefulness and just discard all this nonsense. But we are here, your supporters and your leaders that you're bringing up. We are so grateful. And another thing just to say is we've lost our freedoms. I know you've talked about this, and we have to win them back. So we, whereas we do have a little bit of more freedom than other countries, we are being shut down by these police officers and being banned at Kroger's, trying to collect signatures, online shadow banning in a digital cage. So we've got a lot of work to do. We have lost a lot of our freedoms, and I see it every day. We have a sophisticated form of slavery that's taken over all the way since I was a kid. I've realized that. And I've always been searching for solutions, and we are just given every single tool. So I just want to express that whatever you're passionate about, if you study what you've done, everybody's used email. What an honor it is for you to be a champion fighting for us. So thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe, Matt, I think it's good to sort of level set. Just take a look, I'm sharing all of this, by the way, online also, but just to give you the fact that, our movement, my life, is driven by solutions. So just to review what Matt said, one of the most important solutions that we have multiple solutions in the area of truth, freedom, and health. One of the most important solutions we have is if you look at the entire medical system, the Western medical system is phenomenal if you're in a crisis, if you get your head blown off, right? Or you get into a horrible accident. By the way, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic there, but in the event of a crisis, a major phenomenon, Western medicine provides reductionist solutions like, antibiotics and surgery and all those things, which are very powerful. But in the midst of, if you're trying to actually understand how your body works, what you should eat, what are the right things for you, including all the new age diets that come, they don't really help you figure out your body as a system. The same systems principles that govern your body, that govern this microphone, that govern everything in the universe is what I uncovered. And years before, I entered electoral politics, there's a technology and a body of work that I created that everyone can go to systemshealth.com. And systemshealth.com is a solution. This solution affords people throughout the world to become their own educator of how their body is a system. And when you understand how your body is a system, you can really start recognizing that the diet that's good for you, Matt, may not be the diet that's good for Crypto King or the diet that's good for Francis, right? Everyone has a unique system, and you start understanding the principle of resilience, a very powerful system science concept. So the depth of the knowledge that we've put together helps you uncover that. And so our movement is creating systems health educators, people from all different backgrounds. You don't even have to be from the medical background, but we will educate you. We've literally created an institute. You will learn the foundations of systems. You will learn systems medicine, systems care. And then you can get armed with powerful systems tools. You can even go educate your doctor, because we have found the missing link between the ancient systems of medicine, yoga, indigenous medicines, and engineering systems principles. So that's a very powerful solution. I used to teach this at MIT. I've taught it at Harvard. And all over the world, yogis, professors, all of you guys should get involved. You go to systemshealth.com. You can go to the workshops. We have one coming up in March, and we'll be doing them. So that's a completely separate thing. We've been doing to educate and really revolutionize the world of medicine. So if you're into the chiropractic or naturopathy or into, Reiki, all those things, you now will have a framework to explain this in a professional way, in a meaningful way, so people don't just outcast you as woo-woo medicine. The other piece that we've done is for even MDs and doctors who really don't learn the body as a system, they can use this. So both worlds can use this. That's one of the solutions. that Matt has referred to. The other solution is for years, I was invited by some of the leading people in the world to figure out what is good food. How do you figure out what's the right food, right? What is the right food? So that resulted in my figuring out an entire way to understand food in its most holistic way. So it has to be, non-GMO, organic, high bioavailability, right? Safely made and nutrient density. And that resulted in a seal called Clean Food Certified. I did that about 10 years ago. You'll find these seals. It's part of the nonprofit organization we've created, but we've helped, millions and millions of people all over the world and hundreds and thousands of manufacturers, small entrepreneurs who really are dedicated to making good food. That's a food solution, food-based a solution for consumers to understand what is, quote unquote, good food. Okay. That's another solution. The other solution, again, that's in the area of the food area. Another solution that everyone can take advantage of, and we've launched what we call the Cytosolve Open Science Institute. And that institute is where we are doing research faster and cheaper and safer than the biggest academic institutions in the world. We recently won, through the work I did, a major award by one of the leading journals in the world for leukemia. We're going after ALS. We're going after every major disease on the planet using this technology, and it's direct to consumer, which means anyone out here will be able to support this research, because we know the big academic institutions are taking billions of dollars in money. They pocket it, they do fake research, and none of them get sent to jail. Cytosolve has cracked the code. That came out of my PhD work. Another solution. All right. So yeah, and the solution that we have on the political realm is we want to educate people, as Matt said, to get off the plantation. And that is a movement for truth, freedom, health. This too is a system. You understand system science. You understand the foundations of what it takes to get off the plantation. You understand that the elites spend a lot of time in giving you lots of information, but make you ignorant. And you will learn that, and these are the people who are the masters of ignorance. The Sadhgurus, the Fucker Carlsons, the Alex Joneses, the Donald Trumps, and they do not want you to get to knowledge and wisdom, but that's what we do. That's another solution that we have. So we've got a lot of solutions here, and all of these are real solutions built by my hands and the collaboration of some incredible people. So get involved. But if you want to suck Zionist cock, you have the freedom to do that, and we will gladly send you back to the plantation to do that. Let's go over to, we'll take a couple more. It's 22:04. We'll spend another 11 minutes. Let's go to Amir Elhay Bawi. Sorry about that if I didn't pronounce your name right. Go ahead, Amir. Go ahead, Amir. Amir, go ahead. You can speak, Amir. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you, Amir?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Good. What's your comment?
It's more of a question based on a presumption. I presume that you're pro-crypto. And if so, I just wanted to know what's your plans of rolling it out? Would it be in tandem with the banking system, or would we have to abort it? And your views on the universal credit system.
Well, you're asking a long question, but let me just go to the heart of it. Look, first of all, we need to recognize to discuss the question of crypto, we need to step back a couple of points and recognize this. The foreign policy of U.S. imperialism has been directly related to the which, by the way, the foreign policy of U.S. imperialism is directly connected to the foreign policy of the Crown, of British imperialism. It goes back very deep. But that has been directly related to the existence and the creation of Israel, all right? Which is essentially a strategic outpost for many, many reasons. And if you go look at the creation of Israel, the creation of the House of Saud, the support for Zionism, it all goes back to the same British and U.S. imperialism, all of them. And it's essentially been for profiteering off the Middle East and expanding power, profit, and control. The reason I'm relating this to crypto is that today, the US dollar, the strength of the US dollar is not because of gold or not because of petroleum, but it's because of the massive might of US imperialism backed by Zionism. So the dollar, behind the dollar is Zionism. Behind the dollar is aircraft carriers. Behind the dollar is the subjugation of the Palestinian people. That's where the might of the dollar comes from. It does not come from a robust economy, which is actually growing and building anything of sustenance. That's what we need to recognize. So once that's understood, we need to recognize what the role of crypto is. Well, first of all, the blockchain idiots, and look, I understand technology. A blockchain is essentially a linked list, which you learn in, I learned it when I was 14 years old. It's a simple, piece of software which you can link a bunch of data structures together. You add some hash code and you get what's called a blockchain. Anyway, this has been blown up to be some technology that's going to save the world. But let me be very clear, as a technologist who does technology development, technology never has been shown to alleviate human suffering. In fact, whenever a new technology comes, people get very excited, but ultimately leads to subjugation of human beings much faster and sooner. When the publishing industry came and the Gutenberg press, by the way, the Gutenberg didn't create the press, the Chinese actually created the printing press first. But because they're yellow, they don't get the credit, perhaps. But regardless, Gutenberg did not invent the printing press. But nonetheless, when the printing press came, everyone said, oh my God, we'll all be able to print books. We'll all be able to do stuff and we'll have freedom. Well, what ended up happening was that technology was consolidated by 4 major publishing companies. If you want to get a book out and get it out to Barnes and Nobles and get it out in mass, it's very difficult to do that with the massive amount of promotion. But Booby Kennedy and Trump want to get a book out, or Biden wants to get a book out. They will overnight call one publishing house and boom, it'll be out in every airport and every store. So then you look at the internet. When the internet first came, I wrote a book called Arts and the Internet. You guys can find here. And this was written in 1994. And Arts and the Internet was when the internet first came. I also do a lot of art, and Glenn Urban of the Sloan School, the dean of the Sloan School, said a fresh look at the internet and its potential for arts, marketing, and creativity. And the idea was when the internet came, we were all thinking, wow, the internet, everyone builds their own website. We become our own storefront. It's going to change the world. Well, what ended up happening there? Twitter, right? Google, YouTube, a few companies, Amazon, consolidated the internet. People didn't do their own homesteading. We gave it all to a few major providers. Now, let's talk about crypto. Well, you have to understand, to do mining, it's supposed to be decentralized, but the reality is the amount of money and computing power you need to do to mine a coin is quite incredible. It's highly centralized. More importantly, let's get even simpler. The communication that I am doing right now between this device and you and anyone is not done by the people for the people. It's done by 4 major telecommunications companies, AT&T, Vodafone, T-Mobile, and a few others. So no matter what you have in your wallets and what you think you have decentralization, it's highly centralized. The wire, the copper, the fiber is owned by 4 major companies. They could shut you down anytime they want. And this is it's right in your face. And you can look back at what happened in Tahrir Square during Arab Spring. All these kids were thinking, oh yeah, we're on social media, we're organizing these protests. Millions were coming out. And then suddenly when working people started joining the students' protest, boom, the fascist Mubarak of Egypt made one phone call to Vodafone and they shut everything down. So we have to get our head out of our asses thinking technology is going to deliver truth, freedom, health. No, what is going to deliver truth, freedom, health is a raising of consciousness of human beings and us ultimately seizing the means of production. That's what's going to do it. So ultimately, what's going on right now with crypto, with the Bitcoin stuff, is to get people into digital currency. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry in India is on Google Pay right now. Even a small street vendor who's selling jackfruit is using digital. Don't you understand how much power people have. The few, when you're on this digital medium and the infrastructure is controlled by them, they can shut you down anytime. They can shut all these transactions down at any time. Today, most of crypto is a store of value. The number of transactions Bitcoin can do is maybe 8 or 20 transactions per, a very small amount of, a little bit of time. So it's a store of value. But the ultimate test here is those in power are putting out crypto to see its adoption, but ultimately it would be owned by the central digital bank currencies. And you'll have centralized digital bank currencies linked to your social media profiles, and then further linked to carbon tax. That's where this is headed. And so the elites are very clever. They're highly organized. They know how to create booms and busts. And they do that with phenomenal precision, but ultimately it's to distract you from building a real movement. The only way we're going to get real liberation is building a movement. Does that help you understand that, Amir?
Yeah, that's perfect. It's a surprise, to be honest. I didn't think I would hear that, but that's spot on. And yeah, I mean, the motion, the wheels are already in motion. You obviously know more than I do with ISO 222. I was just wondering how you would educate us about going about the right way with crypto, because that seems to be the new, like, quote unquote, the new democracy.
Well, hold on, let me go back to this. Not sure what's going on here. Trying to find out. You guys still there? Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Look, the ultimate thing here is that we need to step back and recognize, again, it gets to the central point. Technology has never liberated human beings. What technology has done is led to the consolidation of power when those technologies are owned and controlled by a few set of people. And that's the key element to understand. So there's amazing technologies coming out, right? I mean, most of these algorithms have been around for, 60 years. I've worked on them for years. There's really nothing new there, except the fact it's got broad appeal. However, all of these technologies, without being truly controlled by the masses of people, will be abused. And I think that's really the core of what people need to understand. Let's go to the next one. Ken, do you want to choose some other people? Ken? Hello?
Has been really requesting to speak for quite a while.
Yeah, can you select?
Be a troll, because we're going to need you.
Go ahead. No, Crypto King School. Go ahead.
She's not longer here, probably.
Yep. If you could be the go ahead. I'm back. All right, let's take it's 22:15. Let's wrap up in the next 14 minutes. Anyone who really wants to speak, who's been here, let's try to give everyone a chance here. We've had Tom Murphy here, who's been requesting to speak. Go ahead, Tom. Tom Murphy.
We'll circle back to crypto after.
Yep. Tom Murphy, go ahead. All right. Who else do we have here? Matt Stone.
Crypto is ready to speak.
Okay, go ahead. Actually, before we bring crypto in again, I just want to make sure we give a couple of other people who haven't had the chance to speak in. Okay. We have Bazin. Go ahead, Bazin.
Citizen's Intuition wants to speak also.
What's that?
Citizen's Intuition wants to speak also.
Go ahead, Bazin. Bazin, go ahead. Bazin, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Shiva. I wanted to say that
we can infer intent in a decentralized system by observing that it's producing similar outcomes over and over again. And when we see the pattern that every time a bottoms-up movement is bubbling up, we see the likes of a Gandhi or an MLK or a Booby Kennedy, we can conclude, okay, they're probably doing this intentionally, and they are probably going to do it again. So the only solution in that is to stop falling for these Zionist idols, and understanding the dynamics of the not so obvious establishment. And the only movement that's doing that right now, that's teaching people those dynamics, is Truth, Freedom, Health. And so it's the only solution to this is teaching people those dynamics, because clearly people keep falling for them over and over again.
Yeah, I think, Bazan, it's no different. It's as simple, believe it or not, as if we wanted to learn how to fly, if we wanted to learn how to communicate wireless, you would have to learn, respectively, right, aeronautical engineering, or you'd have to learn the laws of Maxwell. It's that simple. And we've uncovered those laws. And it's not like there's other laws, you know? There's the laws of electromagnetism if you want to do wireless communication. They're the laws of Bernoulli's principle. If you want to liberate yourself, I've uncovered those laws. Our movement has educating people on those laws. So this is not about some ego trip saying we have the only solution. It's like we have uncovered those laws and we're making those laws available to people. So to all of you listening, as you know, we're getting ready to close. Every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m., go to vashiva.com/orientation or go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Become a warrior scholar. You don't have to waste your time another 20, 30 years. You don't have to be mentally masturbating all day trying to figure out what I should do and whining. We've figured it out. So thanks a lot, Bazan, for bringing us back to that core. Thank you. Let's go to Tom Murray. Go ahead, Tom. I want to try to get all the people who are, we're not going to take any more requests. We're just going to take the people that we have just to be respectful. Go ahead, Tom. Tom Murphy, can you, you're added as a speaker. We're going to add, go ahead, Tom. Bazan, I'm going to remove you as a speaker. Thanks for joining us. We have Citizen Intuition, former health rights director in California. Go ahead, Citizen Intuition.
Yeah, I appreciate the topics you're bringing up, and whether or not your delivery matches mine, I appreciate what you're doing. Two things very quickly. So you said that we need to take the means of production back, and I agree with you on that. The problem that I see is that anytime we start to talk about that, people will say, oh, that's a socialism idea, that's a communism idea. And I think there's a huge disconnect between people actually having the power versus the state having the power. And there's no willingness to actually apply best practices when it comes to all of the isms. I would love to know what you think about that. And secondly, this is straight up in regards to genetic privacy. Okay. I'm sure MIT, you might have heard about a company called Ginkgo Bioworks. I've done thorough research on them. I'll make it short and brief. I'm concerned not only about them, but all of the testing companies and all of the laboratories that collected our genetic samples, and the language that's in the consent forms on the websites for the authorization release info and in legislation where they specifically drop in language called de-identified data. Meaning they basically take the label off of identifiers with your name, social security, things of that nature. But if you look at the language, basically these people can pass around genetic samples as long as they're quote unquote de-identified. And so I'm wondering if that's on your radar. Do you have any concerns about how our samples have been passed around, where they could be? Because this company, Ginkgo Bioworks, has relationships, partnerships from our agencies to BGI Genomics and on to Moderna. And so those two topics.
Yeah, so let's talk about the first one. So look, the concept of people, communities, civilizations, having rights to the means of production goes long before Karl Marx ever talked about it. And what does that mean? All right. So even in many, what you would call, quote unquote, primitive civilizations, And if you go to South India, the Dravidian culture, which I come from, is one of those ancient civilizations. The concept of and in those civilizations, to keep it simply put, at a certain point in human history, there was no concept of private property, meaning people thinking, I own the air, I own land, I own that mountain, I own the sun. It's quite interesting. The ownership of private property, we think, and by the way, private property is different than personal property. Even Marx made this distinction. Even in primitive cultures, this existed. I go kill a deer and I get my own coat. That's mine. Okay. But that is very different than the concept of saying, I own these billions of acres of land and I'm going to own it and I'm going to subjugate people to it. That's a concept of privatization of property. All right. It's actually anti-human at a very fundamental level. But when feudalism came to be and we started, feudalism was an interesting, quote unquote, disturbance that took place where we went from these hunter-gatherer societies. It gave people a lot of opportunity to sit in one place and farm and do agriculture. But when that occurred, we also had the concept of privatization of property. And then on that same day is when you had the subjugation of women, because a man, typically people stronger, they said, this land is mine. And you had the concept of the last name, inheritance, all this kind of stuff. And this went on when we had industrialization, people started owning factories. But during these processes, or during this time, the concept of owning and the means of production by a finite set of people was quite brutalizing. And that's what you see. I mean, the concept that 4 major, large, publicly traded companies own all the means of communications, it's quite anti-human. The fact that one guy, Jeff Bezos, owns the distribution of most of the food in the world is quite anti-human, all right? And that's what's going on. Certain things at a certain point of scale should be devolved back to people. And we can have a longer discussion about this. But this is not a Marxist idea. This is a human idea that has existed for ages when you distinguish between privatization of property and personal property. So that's to address that. I'll give you an example relative to that. The postal system. The United States postal system, when the founders thought about it, they felt that certain things like sending communications among people, that should not be owned by, one institution. So they created a quasi-government, non-government model where in every little township, there were these little postal offices. And the goal was any human being should be able to not only have free speech, but free reach. Elon Musk, that apartheid racist motherfucker, doesn't believe that. And that's what he really is, because he openly says free speech does not equal free reach. That means Dr.SHIVA, the darkie, will be put in a digital cage, and so will others. That's where that leads to. That is the concept of why the means of production must be taken over by the vast majority of people. And the founders of the United States, were they socialists? Were they Marxists when they created something like the Postal Service? No. There are certain things like air should not be owned. Communication should not be owned by a finite set of people. And that's my point on that. Now, relative to privacy, the health information, HIPAA, as they call it, came up with the concept of that when you have your health information, you should anonymize the data. So if there's my name, my social security, that should be in a different table per se than the data that's gathered. And the data that's gathered could be used for research, et cetera. Again, here comes the bottom line. To your point, you made a very important point, is how was those words framed? Under what conditions are there acts of God and those kind of things when government can intervene and get access to your data? And, one has to have a healthy level of paranoia to recognize that whenever things are given to government and a few set of people, ultimately it gets abused. So that's I can go into a longer discussion on that, but ultimately these technologies, the means of production of these technologies must be broadly owned by people like the Postal Service, for example. Let's go to the next question. Let's go to, I think, Tom Murphy, did you have a chance to go? Add a speaker. Kim wanted to speak. Diamond Q, Quantum Computing, wants to speak. Citizen International has spoken, so I'm going to remove them. Diamond Q, go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Shiva.
Yes.
Actually, that was a really great point. But my question for that would be, what is it that would motivate people to want to build these giant things? If we didn't have capitalism, do you think that we would have these innovations? What would be the way to inspire people?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, if you look at the movement of history, capitalism, any of these systems, be it, feudalism, capitalism, whatever you want to call it beyond this ism, right? All of these systems go through, they're basically what I call phase transitions. If you read the book System and Revolution, I talk about this. All of these systems are an emergent property. So feudalism was an emergent property that occurred when we had this innovation of domesticating animals and learning how to do farming. Out of that innovation, that catalysis, you had this phenomenon called feudalism come into being. When the steam engine, when certain technologies were created, we moved from the agricultural world to the industrial world. And in that model, a new form of politics and economic systems came out, what you would call, quote unquote, democracy. It's a flawed version of democracy. It's democracy for the elites, but nonetheless, it was a move forward from feudalism, and you had the creation of early, market capitalism. But ultimately, that too, over time, leads to consolidation of power, as we've seen, further and further consolidation. And the emergent property that'll come out of that, we don't know. But what we are doing to answer that question is we are creating a movement. And that movement is catalyzing people to understand this dynamics. Unlike previous people who try to dictate how these movements should go, that is not my purpose. Our goal and our movement's goal is to catalyze people to raise their consciousness by understanding the system dynamics of what is going on. That has not happened before in history. So what emerges out of that, where enough people actually understand these emergent properties, how these systems work, can lead to a very different kind of phase transition. But you're absolutely right. During the early stages of market capitalism now, it is that force that created highways and roads and bridges and these technologies. But, as we say in an old proverb, you can touch your nose like this, or you can touch it behind your head, right? Both ways. One must ask, is a key driver of massive amount of greed, consolidation of power, the only way to go around your neck to touch your nose? And that's an outstanding question. But nonetheless,
I've always thought that if humans were perfect, communism is the answer. But the problem is humans desire power, and anytime it's how do you allocate things in communism? And everybody, whoever's in charge, all of a sudden,
look, we can have a longer discussion. All I can tell you is that the key thing is consciousness is what we're talking about here. I can tell you in a very, very deep level, there have been human societies, and this is where the theoreticians in academia actually get it wrong and they don't want to discuss this, is that they are looking from a lens of what we are today. Consciousness is a function of the means of production. And retrospectively, that observation from Marx, you have to give him credit for his prospective observations. That was only 1% of his work. But retrospectively, it is quite a profound understanding that consciousness emerges from the means of production. So there was a time, and you can go to parts of India. India is fascinating because you have multiple systems operating at the same time still. So if you go to hunter-gatherer societies, what you would call quote unquote primitive communism, the concept of ownership really doesn't exist. It's quite fascinating. In the Tamil language and the Iroquois language, which are one of the most ancient languages, it is disrespectful to say, come to my home. You say, come to our home. The pronouns are very uniquely different. The consciousness is our stuff, you know, and it's not some collective Marxist idea, but it's frankly quite beautiful and loving. And so it's hard for people who have not experienced those worlds to appreciate this. I've been fortunate to have experienced that, so I have a little bit of insight into that. It's a longer discussion we can have, but we must.
I would love to.
Yeah, we must break ourselves from these ideas that I would argue that we don't really know what it means to be fully human. It's like a fish that's swimming in a fish tank of all pollution. It's never really swam in any other fish tank. You see what I'm saying? So what we're talking about is becoming the observer, where you as a human being reflect on you being in that fish tank. You see what I'm saying? And what we are building is the knowledge of system science gives you that opportunity, to realize that you can be a catalyst with other human beings for raising consciousness to transform society into a place I don't even want to predict, because that would be into this whole utopian model, right? But the here and now is, why don't we understand these systems dynamics? And that's what we're doing. Where that takes us and the emergence of what will come out of that, I can't predict, and I don't want to. That would make me a fascist. You say? I don't want to do that. But good question.
Yeah. So it goes into what my channel is, Diamond Quantum, because I do have communication with MIT physicists. Diamonds are at the heart of the next generation of computing, and we're trying to figure out photonic. But right now, everything's electrons. Now we're going to move over to photons of light. And you could think of electrons as 2D, photons as 3D.
Yep.
And right, so we're gonna get into this whole, and it's kind of at the backbone.
Well, in the interest of time, we could do a follow-up on that, right? But let me. We could do a whole thing on quantum computing. But thank you. Thanks for your. Yeah, thank you. Let's go over to Uma Bayat Almal. Go ahead, Uma. And then I think that's it. I think we can't take anyone new on, and that'll be it. And then we'll wrap up with our hosts, Sabir and Ken and Jill. Go ahead, Uma.
Oh my God, Doctor, you managed to fit me in. Well, that is impressive. That is really impressive.
Well, you had your hands on for a while, so we didn't want to.
Thank you so much for your humanity. That is, oh my gosh. Okay, look, we've got a lot of questions. We're in London, right next to the Bank of England. We just wanted to know, when you get into power, what will you abolish the U.S. Federal Reserve?
Well, look, it's deeper than that. I'm going to get rid of the Fed. I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. It's much deeper than that, actually, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So let's talk about, okay, my getting into power, winning the presidency, even getting on the ballot in any state, Uma, do you understand, is a revolutionary event, because the forces of power, profit, and control don't even want us to get on the ballot in any state, okay?
And let me just say one thing. Let me interrupt you. First of all, it is an honor, and we are going to be exhibiting you in our End Zionism campaign that we've launched. You are going to be exhibit in the politics section, okay?
Okay, great.
And I didn't know about you. I just found out about you today. And I'm I'm a Muslim, okay? I pray to God, and God has answered our prayers. Whether you win the election or not, we're just blown away that the fact that this has happened in America. So, well, the
reality is,
we praise Allah. We praise Allah that our prayers have been answered. Because believe me, the other night we were in a ultra conservative room, and these guys, they want to get rid of all the Asians and all the N-words and everyone in whiten the whitest America. That's what they want. And I'm like, what the hell did I get into? Because we're in London, do you understand?
Yeah.
We're dealing with the UK politics here. And the US politics, I didn't realize that they are so racist and so ultra-conservatives. And they're going to be voting for Trump, and they're going to be voting for all these Bidens and everything. And how do you live up there? It's unbelievable, guys. I'm like, and then now you come across, I'm just blown away. And you are brown skin, if I'm seeing correctly, right? Is that correct?
I am.
Bloody hell, my friend. Okay, another question. Sorry, I'm going to be.
So Uma, so here, let me just look. First of all, what's happening?
I'm excited. I'm sorry. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So what's happened, Uma, is the following. The elites love to have white people and black people fighting against each other. And they love to create this divisiveness because then they can control both sides. So on the one hand, they have black misleaders who hype up black people, and they have, let me finish. Yeah, let me finish. Yeah. So they have, just in the interest of time, so then they have black misleaders who do that. They have white misleaders who do that. And I just want to respond to your comments, and we're going to close out after this because it's a good way to end, Uma. Thank you. But the bottom line is this, that if you look on this call today, we have people from all different races, all different backgrounds, and our movement is a global movement that is for about uniting and raising people. It's not just about uniting people. We're not just about fake unity. We're about uniting people around the consciousness of truth, freedom, health. Understanding that the consciousness has to fundamentally be raised on understanding the system science. In many ways, it's an educational movement, fundamentally. And the elites know that education of the broad mass of people with these really, really important principles is far more dangerous than a weapon or a bomb or anything, right? It was quite profound when, people asserted, wait a minute, the earth may go around the sun, right? Nothing changed fundamentally. Did anything change? No, but the perspective changed and the ideas changed. Everything I'm saying is heretofore existed, but we're merely educating people on these concepts about the not so obvious establishment, about this dynamic. And that knowledge raises people's consciousness. That knowledge leads you to identify why Zionism and Brahmanism and Nazism are anti-human against all people. That knowledge leads you to recognize that why we must mentally and physically get off the plantation, particularly mentally. That knowledge gives us to the discipline of why we need to learn this stuff in a disciplined way, why we must respect knowledge and study it, not be dilettante about it. And we have to have the discipline to not waste our time with people who don't want to study the shit. We don't have time for that. And that is what our movement is. So if you are serious about really, really shattering the swarm, really, really advancing human consciousness, you found the right place. That's what this is about. But if you want to perpetuate yourself and be in some lower states of hell, that's what, to me, hell is, a much lower state of consciousness, then you have every right to do that. And your leaders will reflect that. You will think Booby is your leader, or Biden is your leader, or Trump is your leader. You will also start recognizing that there are Muslims who have supported Zionism. There are Hindus who support Zionism. There are Christians who support Zionism. There are Jews who are anti-Zionist. There are white people and black people who are anti-Zionist. So the ultimate issue here is, do you believe that a small set of people should only have access to understand the laws of the universe, in this case, system science, so they could run everyone else and make everyone else think they're less than them? Or do you believe that we should devolve knowledge to the vast majority of human beings, which is what we're doing? Like Prometheus bringing fire to the earth. If you believe that, and you want to get off the plantation and you want to raise your consciousness, we're here. But Zionism, the discussion of Zionism, and what we are discussing today, the Zionist CockZuckers, and the very important usage of those terms is very important. The use of describing the difference between a field nigga and a house nigga, these are important educational concepts. As much as I could discuss to you, a Hamiltonian, or, discuss to you control systems, or discuss to you a partial differential equation, or a linear algebra, what is a cross product, or any set of things that I can impress you with technologically, it is as important to call these people cocksuckers. Absolutely a scientific importance to call Trump a cocksucker, to call Trump a house nigga, to call Booby Kennedy a cocksucker. These are scientific terms. I would use the same, if I were describing a particular aspect in the world of physics, if I were discussing something in biology, if I were discussing something in mechanical engineering, right? I would use the particular language. Our movement is describing the right language at the right time to describe the right people and breaking your mindset of the brainwashing. So you must teach your kids to call someone like this fellow who manipulates people fucker Carlson. And why are you doing that? You are showing absolutely no respect to an individual who is subjugating you and keeping you on the plantation. You must call Trump a fucking Zionist cocksucker in that rhythm and that cadence and those words, because you're showing defiance to them for all the fake respect that they deserve. And you must slap the shit out of those people who try to tell you not to use those words because they're part of the plantation. This is pure scientific, reality that we're talking about. And that's what's so profound about this. That's why one of the speakers, was trying to act like he was some populist, with his accent from the South. Oh, I don't know why you're talking from that. Well, shut the fuck up. I will talk like that because it is scientific, and you must. And to any, house Negro who does not want to use the word nigga, well, then stay on the fucking plantation. I don't care what color skin you are. Because my great-grandfather, the people I come from, were the first slaves that were taken from India. So I will use it. And so it doesn't matter what race you are. We are all niggas on the Swarms plantation. The issue is, do you want to be a field nigga or a house nigga? I'm a field nigger. I got off the plantation. And I want to teach as many people to get off. So please use those words. Don't let anyone try to suppress you in using those words, particularly these bougie black fellows who love to be on the plantation and now want to talk the way the bougie guys do. These are important words that must be used. Beyond Tupac Shakur, and everyone should use these words. Don't let anyone restrict your fucking language. It is a way they control your mind. All right? All right, let's finish up with Saber, who's our host. And we'll wrap it up.
It's such an honor to hear you speak every time, Dr. Shiva. And it's funny because a lot of people don't understand this concept, but it's so basic that, you really have to use basic languages. It's funny because they used to use this language, but now they want to try to make it illegal or try to, control our language, which means control our thoughts. And, I really want to say for the people who are listening, do not get caught in this terminology. Just look at what Dr. Shiva is doing. Just look at his character. We should all learn from Dr. Shiva. He's such an inspiration, and we should just learn from what his secret. He ages like wine, not like cars.
Yeah, thank you, Saber. One of the things I want to share with you, Saber, is in the midst of all the shadow banning that you guys know I undergo, right? In the midst of all this, let me show you this tweet. Ultimately, Saber, most people actually completely agree with the language we're saying. They have to make it assume as though the majority don't. This thing, Trump is a house nigger of the Rothschilds. He is not a quote-unquote clever businessman, but wholly indebted to them for everything he never earned, including the presidency. All else is theater. In the midst of all of the shadow banning, it's got around close to 500,000 views. Saber, do you see that? In whatever, right? So most people completely are absolutely fine with you calling people who they are. But the terminology I use, cockzucker, it's an innovation, frankly. Okay? It's no different than inventing email. It really is. It really isn't. It took effort. It took time. To call these people Zionist cocksuckers was a conscious act, putting it together, and it resounded. I think that got about, in the midst of all the shadow banning, 2 million views, right? It probably got 200 million views. So the vast majority of people get it. They have great anger to the people who are trying to subjugate them. The good news is our movement exists. We have someone like Saber. We have someone like Nick Rivera. We have a growing movement of 500,000 people who are understanding these concepts. And we are basically the field niggas who are going to lead the movement to get everyone off the plantation. And that is why, Saber, they are so profoundly into making me invisible and literally having Kennedy mimic our words, Trump mimic our words. Then they try to pull this brown skin Brahmin, brown nose or big pharma bullshitter, Vivek the Snake. It's all psychological operations, and it's all failing because we are finding incredible people like you, Saber, all the people that are coming to our movement, very thoughtful people who are realizing, I got to learn what Dr. Shiva is saying. I'm going to be humble. There is something here. I have to put the time in. I went to, I'm going to go to truthfreedomhealth.com. I'm going to watch those videos. I'm going to learn the physics. This is not some ideology. It's science. And let's finish up with the wonderful Jill Jones. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. I just wanted to share some words very quickly. It is said, whosoever of you sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand. And if he is not able to do so, then with his tongue. And if he is not able to do so, then with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith. And Uma, I think you could appreciate this. This is coming from Islam. And what we're doing at Truth Freedom Health, we are speaking out against this evil as we see it, but we're taking action and we are changing this evil with our hands. We are being strong in our faith because faith is not just some kind of spiritual concept. It's a living thing. And we are taking action in this movement to change this world and crush this evil. And we will speak out against it. And we will act out against it. So you found the right place. And everyone who's listening, if you want to change the evil in the world, come to Truth Freedom Health.
Thank you. And it's a great way to end. And I want to once again, for those people who came, I want to end with these wonderful words because we are using very powerful words, house Negro, field Negroes, house nigga, field nigga. We're using cocksucker. And these are important terms that everyone should get educated on. So I want to, as we close out, I'm going to once again, as I started, I'm going to play the speech that Malcolm X gave, and Malcolm was really figuring all these things out. Malcolm was figuring out the not so obvious establishment. But we are creating millions of Malcolm X's with the profound understanding of system science. Had Malcolm X had access to this knowledge at that time, the world would have been a very, very different place. So I want to play that same video, Jill and our host Saber, if that's okay, to wrap up. Okay. Let me play this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shiva. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me play this again for everyone. And if people have not, I don't recommend a lot of books to read. But if anyone has the time, pick up the book by Alex Haley, who co-wrote it with Malcolm X, called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Let me play this for everyone here.
When black people like me talk to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They sent some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" He was as sick as the master. When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes. They ate the worst food. And they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes.
All right, everyone. I hope this was educational. Our movement's an educational movement. Get involved. Go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Go to Shiva for President. Get one of these bumper stickers. Show your raised consciousness and your defiance by putting this, one of these stickers. You can get a bumper sticker on the back windshield of a car. You will be able to reach 100,000 people. Go get, go to Shiva for President. Download that flyer. Share it with your friends and family. Educate them. That's how we raise consciousness, learn, teach, and serve. And fundamentally, go to Shiva for President, volunteer, and donate. We show our elevation in consciousness, our getting off their plantation by getting us on the ballot. And it's all up to you, and it's a bottoms-up movement. So get involved. Thank you, everyone. Be well, be the light. And thank you for participating tonight. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Be well. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. That was our Twitter space and our call-in show. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thank you.